Good morning all. Welcome to the Budget Committee meeting for Friday the 3rd of June 2022. Welcome to councillors, staff and anyone watching through live stream. I'd like to open the meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay, leave of absence request. I don't think we have any today. Everyone's here. So we'll go on to the recognition of traditional owners. Thanks, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any in relation to today's agenda? No? Okay, we'll move on. 5.1, minutes of the Budget Committee meeting held on the 27th of May 2022 at page 5. It's recommended that the minutes of the Budget Committee meeting held on 27 May 2022 be received. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henshin, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Speakers to the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. Councillor 6.1, notice of motion, Black Butt Town upgrade and Maidenwell transfer. That is at 14. Committee, I put that forward, but I received a letter yesterday from the Maidenwell Community Group raising a number of issues. And so I've just informed the CEO I'm going to retract that motion from this morning's meeting on the basis that I would like myself and perhaps Council to take time on this to appropriately consider and respond to the issues raised by the community out there. So I will be hereby formally retracting that notice of motion at this point in time. That being the case, we'll now move on to 6.2, works proposed for the CapEx program 22-23 at page 15. Now we do have the recommendation there, but before we go into that, okay, who would like to lead us through this one? Is that yours, General Manager MA, or we got Craig?
Not mine.
So this is the Works CapEx. We've got Tim and Kevin here. So Acting General Manager, we might go to you first. Thank you, Tim.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. So this is basically the follow-up from the workshop that we had the other day. We haven't had any questions outside of that as far as I'm aware. And so up to you, Mayor. Do you want to go back through the whole program like we did the other day, or what's your preference?
Yeah, seek the guidance of committee councillors. Did you want to go back through line by line? Councillor Shoemaker?
Mr Mayor, I'm sorry, just been out for a couple of days and just struggling to find the email. I was just wondering if Bree may be able to share the Excel documents just with all councillors so we can open them here. Sorry to be a pain. Just forward that one.
Thanks, Bree. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get that out to all the councillors now while we wait for that to come through.
Lost in the emails.
Going there, Manager. Finance. Craig. Okay, there we go. So we've got the email, we've got works up on the screen there. Okay, we've got that up there now. Acting General Manager, happy if we go back to you and manage the cell to lead us through, starting with the 22-23 year.
Yes, through you, Mayor, I'll just hand over to Kevin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a bit of perhaps a recap. So Monday last week we went through each of the renewal programs, such as bitumen resealing, gravel resheeting, floodways, bridges, etc. And we had those handouts which had all of the proposed individual projects on them, and probably for a couple of years outward as well. And then this particular screen that we're looking at, the spreadsheet, is essentially the summation of all of those individual projects. Craig, if you can just flick up to the top one there. So we've got that program there with the unsealed gravel resheeting and that 923,000 in those individual spreadsheets, individual handouts that we had on Monday. Those individual projects were identified, and that culminated into that the total figure that you see there, 923,000. And then we just worked our way through with the sealed network, such as bitumen reseals and pavement rehabilitation, and you can see the various projects there. I haven't had any additional feedback since previous Monday, so that should be as is as we looked at during the workshop. And then we go further down. We've got our footpath projects, footpath program, our bridges and drainage, which rounds out the particularly the renewals, which is very much the focus on this. And we did present the proposed potential upgrade projects in that handout as well, which looked at all of the various projects that have been talked about and proposed, such as new footpaths or upgrading unsealed to sealed roads, etc. And so they're in the original handout that we had last week. Happy to take any feedback or questions, bearing in mind we're on a bus trip next week to look at some of these potential projects as well, which may also determine what the final program looks like.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Manager Sell. Just on that Cumbria CBD, there's $250,000 noted there. I was under the impression that was 300,000. Okay, yep.
Okay, we'll just update that, Craig. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to bring to the attention of the chamber that the budgets that we're proposing and the amounts, these figures are all available off our website or wherever. But in 19 and 20, the years 19-20, we had a capital budget of $6,782,000. We're proposing a capital works or capital budget this year of $6,971,000, which is a difference of $188,000. Now, since 19 to our next year will be 3 years with significant increases, significant costs. At this stage, struggling to support this budget on these figures, and I'll put in we're talking capital works and all that sort of stuff here, but our maintenance budgets as well. $6,885,000 in 19-20, and we're proposing $6,991,000, which is a difference of 106,000. So in total, the roads maintenance and capital works budget will increase by 295,000 since 1920. Now, in the last two budget presentations, I've stood up and said that I have serious concerns about whether or not we can deliver the level of service that the people in the community are expecting. And I'm going to say right now, as the roads portfolio holder, I can see our level of service dropping across our region since 1920 to where we are now. And these are my personal views. I'm just saying this, and I just want to bring it to the attention. We expect our staff to try and attempt to deliver the same level of service from 1920 in the proposed 22-23 budget, with an extra 295,000, taking into account CPI, wage increases, material costs, everything else that's involved in the right across our council. But I'm thinking that would add up to millions over since 1920 up to the 22-23 proposed budget that we've got in front of us. So if this budget goes through, I believe that we cannot deliver the same level of service that's expected from our community at the moment, simply because the money is not there to do it. And how we come across that or how we discuss that and improve that, I don't know, because I know how tight the budget is and I know where we've been looking and how far we've gone down in the budget, taking money out. But I do have serious concerns for our staff and this council to deliver to the community, and we all know that we are getting smashed on roads. And this is the first time that I've said it openly, but I believe that our level of service on the roads is slipping and getting lower. And it may have something to do, you have a look through 2021, in that year the capital budget was 6,932,000. We're talking now in 22-23 proposed budget of 6,971,000. So I believe that it's going to be very difficult for the men and women that are doing this work out in the general public to see, and what the general public and our community expect. I don't believe that we can deliver the services that they want or are needed. So I just wanted to bring that to the highlight of the chamber and open for discussion and other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, would it be fair to say that you're quite concerned about the level of this capital budget in terms of the amount of renewal work that has to be done across our entire road network, and the fact that we're only committing $6.971 million, and that's not going to be sufficient to do the renewal and upgrade works that are needed? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I just believe that we have trouble. Like, there was a 750K reduction in depreciation last year, and that showed in our capital budget figures. We went from 2021 from 6,932,000 down to 21-22 of 6,086,000. So we're making it very difficult. And I know the community, like, you put a survey on, if you wanted to go out and do a social media survey or whatever else, and you ask the people, I would be really keen to see the results if we asked them if they wanted their roads and everything addressed before we started fancying up parks and all that. The stories I'm getting and the community feedback I'm getting around our parks is they want well-maintained, well-presented parks at this stage, but their roads are still their concern. And how we come across that, where we place our money, all that sort of stuff, I don't know. But that's just to highlight a few of the things on the budgets that we've presented in the last 3 to 4 years. There's a total of 295,000. We've had wage increases, we've had 2 CPI, our material costs this year. We all know what that's going to do, and that's expected to go into next year. So how we can be expected to deliver a service level that we had in 1920 with those figures in 22-23, I believe are impossible. And again, that's just my view of reading what's going on or seeing what's happening out on the roads. We're getting smashed. Yes, we've had floods, and the only thing that will save us is the flood damage work and how much that flood damage will pick up on these issues that we already have in our network that are already been CRMs and all that sort of stuff. That may be a saving light at the end, but I still think we're going to struggle to improve the road network with what we've got here in front of us.
Councillors? Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you. I 100% agree. That's why I have been saying about not doing upgrades but doing renewals. That's why I was not wanting to do that bitumen seal on that one particular road, and what I've been saying about the roundabouts and putting roundabouts up. The community are upset about the roads. I 100% agree with you. That's where we need to focus and on renewals rather than upgrades. So I'm 100% supportive. I don't think that we should do the as Councillor Erkins flagged, the nice to have. We need to do the absolute wants, needs of the community, and that not the wants. The needs of the community are to upgrade, to actually renew what we've got, to fix our potholes, to fix our roads, and not spend the money on just the dressing up the roundabouts, for example. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Jones, you could...
Yeah, thanks. Just in response to that, Mayor, through you, it's all good and well that we have grant funding and all that now, and we can throw it in there and we can try and fix the problem. But this problem has been going since 1920. We can see that there's been no increases, not significant, and I don't believe that we made these decisions in this chamber on the budgets and all that, and I was a part of it, but I did raise concerns in the last two budget presentations that I didn't believe that we could deliver the services. And yeah, of course we can throw the money in there, we can try and fix it, but it's been a problem that's been bubbling along for the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden we got here. You know, you can throw all you want at it, but it's still not going to bring up, like the money that we're talking about in LRCI funding and all that, that's only just covering what we've taken out. So if we had been more proactive, moving along, and again, my views, we may not have been in this situation. So it's a discussion that probably needs to happen now that we're right in the throes of budget.
Yeah, and just to put that in context, Council moved into deficit as a result of the revaluation of our transport assets and our building assets. So that extra depreciation cost moved us into deficit. And Council has been, over the last two budgets, endeavouring to not dip into our cash reserves by reducing the capital budget so that we weren't going to actually then start to draw down on the cash that we've got at bank. Now, I think we probably understand that, but just the context for the community, Council has had to deal with deficits, and that's why we weren't able to fund all of our depreciation. If we, Councillor Jones is talking there about capital projects for works, if we are wanting to fund capital projects for works over and above what we see here, then General Manager Jarvis, we would have to then draw down on our cash to provide a greater CapEx budget for roads. Would that be correct? And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. Just wanting to clarify that that would be the process.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That's correct, Mr Mayor. And the cash reconciliation sheet that we showed or produced to Council through the week explained about funded depreciation and our cash reserves. So that's definitely how it affects it.
Do we have cash reserves in restricted cash for transport assets, like for roads, to be able to increase this 6.9 million if Council was the mind to do so?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we do, but that's a decision of Council, whether you want to draw on your cash reserves or we're directed by Council. That's your choice.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Erkins, you can stay seated, Jane, for these ones, because it's interactive budget discussion. Yeah.
Thank goodness. I walked all around Bjelke, Peterson Dam trying to keep up with Councillor Henson and Duff yesterday. One of the things that I found when I go out and talk to people, and as Councillor Jones said, it is the roads that most people complain about. But the number of people that have said to me, I was told by Council 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that they were going to be doing so much bitumen on our road, and we're still waiting, have seen nothing about it. And that's like lots of people are telling me that they've been promised all these things and it's never eventuated. And it is what people, I think, expect from council, the roads, rather than the pretty parks and...
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. You're right, Councillor Erkins. I've had a number of conversations around with people, but a lot of it comes before amalgamation, and I can use the road, one of the roads in southeast Nanango, that they were told that they were going to, every year they'd do a kilometre of bitumen, and that came before amalgamation, and also with some pre-developments from different developers. I've been told that a lot of people have been told by when they bought the land, that's how long they've been there, that there was a contribution made to council that would enable these roads to be bitumened. I've asked on numerous occasions, and I believe the staff have done a wonderful job trying to dig through everything, and there's no records whatsoever of any contribution coming from developers in regards to those roads. So there is a problem out there with the expectations of that's what's been portrayed in the community. But what I've been able to find, there's no records of any contributions made from developers way back in the day, and I'm talking back in the 80s and that's around there when Nanango and all that sort of stuff developed. But there's no recognition or any acknowledgement of any contribution whatsoever. So, but that is what they were told when they bought the properties, and probably when they were on sold, probably the same conversation was happened. And yeah, so that is some sort of an expectation out there, but there's nothing there to validate it.
Okay. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of questions. I think we've got to be careful not to mix OPEX and CAPEX budgets here when we're laying down the CAPEX budget. I just wanted to confirm through you, Mr. Mayor, through Manager Searle, the OPEX budget that we've set for maintenance on roads this year that we're looking at, the budget allocation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this financial year, the maintenance budget is 6.83 million.
Yep. So that's 6.83 million we spend on maintenance of our roads, defects and the like, on top of the capital program, which is about upgrades and renewals. That's correct?
That's exactly right, Councillor, yes. And so the proposed, currently got the 22-23 maintenance budget at 6.99 million.
6.99 million. And I just recently you presented us with a number of slides, Manager Searle, through you, Mr. Mayor, around the completed defects and priority of defects. And it said in 2021, the defects completed by priority, we had completed 42% of number 1 defects on the network, 15% of number 2, and 32% of number 3 defects, which equated to a large portion of actual safety concerns that were addressed. They weren't necessarily the aesthetics of the road. They were more 1, 2 and 3 defects. Is my understanding they're safety concerns that you fix and prioritise there. Yep. And then in the 21-22 budget, when you did an analysis of the completed defects over 2021 and 21-22 year to date, it showed that council was actually funding predominantly about 89% of its defects that fall under category 1, 2 and 3, which were safety related defects. That's correct with that $6 million budget that you mentioned in OPEX?
That's correct, Councillor.
Yeah.
Yep. So the priority 1 and 2 defects are the real safety ones. And as you work down to 3, 4s and 5s, they're less severe. But generally, the 3s and the 4s will, if unkept or left, will eventually become the priority 1s and the 2 defects. And that's correct. We seem to be spending quite a significant portion of that maintenance budget on the 1s and 2s compared to the year prior. And
when we went through that budget workshop, you also talked about the value of defects currently on the system, and there was over $4 million as at the 29th of April on the system, defects actually logged in our system. And of these, from what I've got here, 50% of that was actually pavement repair. So $1,970,573, that's a big number, of defects currently in the system purely relating to pavement, and another 459,000 relating to potholes repair and patching. The remainder of the rest of the defects in the system really were around boom and vegetation clearing, some gravel patching, some general maintenance, a little bit there for heavy formation grading, and a large portion, 500,000, for shoulder resheeting. So I guess in the scheme of things, where my head is at, I just wanted to confirm, you had mentioned in previous budgets that there was up to $20 million that we would be seeking for funding from Q-Rider to repair the flood damage on our network. Is that correct?
Through QRA.
Yes,
Queensland
QRA,
Reconstruction.
sorry,
Yep. Yeah, so with our 4 current activated events, we're still going through that inspection process and analysing what the actual cost is, but we're thinking it's in the order of $15 to $20 million for flood damage. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about all of these facts. I'm thinking about the significant amount of work that the crew and, as we've discussed, trying to break down those parcels of work for local contractors so that they may actually be able to support us in bringing our network back up to a standard it was before the floods, is significant. That will be a big 12 months ahead of us to fix that $15 to $20 million worth of defects on the network, I imagine. I think we've then got, with the actual the grant-funded capital projects here, I'm looking at our capital works program, in total. So yes, with depreciation and grant funding, it's $13,847,649 we're going to spend in addition on capital projects. And we've allocated, or we're about to allocate, we're talking about $6.99 million on OPEX for our roads and on maintenance of our roads. I guess I'm thinking about all of these things, and I'm thinking about the capacity of our team to deliver on that. That's a hefty workload for the year ahead. And to be honest, I think with where we're at, I think the capital projects that have been put forward here and the program put forward is reasonable. I am looking forward to the bus trip next week. I think 2 days, I think we certainly have all got a pretty good idea from the roads collected around some of the issues in our region. And to be honest, through the capital works review that I've done of the forward programs, many of the issues that I had identified were actually scheduled or registered in there for repair at some point in time. And I respect, that will require patience and understanding from our community. And I guess when I think about all of this, I really do worry that we really can't afford to spend any more money on our roads unless we raise our rates, which at the moment, with the pressures on living costs, I'm not willing to do that, not to the extent at which we would need to lift the level of service. And so I think we're going to have to do some heavy lifting, as you've talked about, Mr. Mayor, around this council being brave in being really honest with our community around what we can and can't afford, and have to accept that, there are some roads that have to take a lower order priority in the hierarchy, which is no different to what the Department of Main Roads does. And I travelled to Bundaberg this week and back, and I can tell you their road network's in just as much hurt as ours. And that is going to be a significant challenge for the southeast corner, I think, over the next 12 months, based on the significant amounts of rainfall that we've received. And I think we do have to find a balance, because, as we've said, wants and needs are a tricky thing that I think this council, we're consistently having to consider what we want versus what we need. And when everything's so broken, everything does seem like a bit of a need. But I would argue, for a lot of the residents that I represent, that green spaces and parks and gardens and their pools and their libraries are just as important as the roads they drive on. So I think we have to be careful here, because I think we could spend our whole budget on roads, but that will come at a cost of the future councils that will have to continue to fix up the problems in the other departments. And our role as the council is to offer a range of core services to our community. I think we've got to get back to basics and back to the core services of our community. So with all those things in mind, I guess that's a bit of a word vomit, and I apologise for that, but there's been so much complexity in the budgets and in the workshops that we've been a part of, and I guess that's where my head's at. I think this is a reasonable capital works program based on the work that we've got ahead in repairing that $15 to $20 million on our road network, and I do think that that will have a difference, make a giant difference on our road network. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Certainly wouldn't call it a word vomit. I think you've raised some excellent issues there, actually, that we need to think very carefully about. Well, further speakers, probably just want to, again, highlight the availability of resources internally and externally to deliver, and I think too expensive over the next 12 months, as Councillor Shoemaker's highlighted, with the $15 to $20 million worth of roads. It's probably not something we want to leap into terribly ambitiously about, in light of the amount of work that does have to be done until we get out the other side of the flood damage. I think that was a really good observation and we need to be aware of. So, yeah, sorry, was it Councillor Erkins?
Can I just ask Councillor Shoemaker, when you gave the figures, the 42% of division, of the rated 1 defects, is that 42% of the defect, is that of the defects, 42% were rated number 1, or was that 42% of rated 1 defects were repaired?
That was 2021 defects completed by priority. The rate of defects, safety defects, number 1, the highest ranking, 42%.
But does that mean
completed by priority of safety 1?
were completed? So 42% of 100% major defects were completed.
Safety.
So 58% of major defects weren't.
I think, Councillor, what we're saying is that the Councillor was saying 42% of the work that was done was on Category 1 defects. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Last year, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, 21-22, 53% of Category 1 defects were completed on the network.
So I just need to get straight in my head. Does that mean that 42%, does that mean major defects were 42% of 100% of defects? Yes. Or does it, okay, that's what I needed to know. It wasn't that you fixed 42% of the 100, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That was 42% of all the defects.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Jones, we'll go back to you, and then Councillor Duff after you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just great conversation, and with the flooding and the damage and all that, the $15 to $20 million, and Manager Kev, correct me if I'm wrong, but where that money will be spent will be on isolated situations, like there might be a 5-kilometre road that has damage on it for 4.5, but the major flood damage is only in that 400 and 500 metres. So that's the only bits of those roads that are going to be addressed by that funding through that. So we're still going to have a lot of issues right across our network, and I totally agree with the councillor in regards to how we get this across, and it's going to be a huge lift with 15 to 20 million of funding plus the budget that we're proposing and all that sort of stuff. And I also, the councillor acknowledged that, the community, we have to make hard decisions, and the figures are there. And I did say when I was talking that the only thing that has any chance of saving us is this flood recovery money in getting it across. If we didn't have that, and who knows how much of a significance that's going to have in picking up all the other issues that weren't created by flood damage, we've still got a lot to go, and we need to be upfront and just be honest with the people.
Absolutely.
We need to be honest. The service level, we'll do our well, not us, we're making the decisions, but the poor men and women on the ground are the ones that have to deliver with what we're going to give them to operate under. So the people need to understand that that's the situation, and the councillor touched on that, and it's dead right. We need to be upfront. We need to be honest, and me personally, again, I just really think even with the 15-20 million thrown into the flood recovery, it's going to be a struggle to hold that service. I said it, I can see it dropping. I can see the service level dropping, and I am the roads drainage portfolio holder, and it's hard for me to say that, but I can drive this network and I can see it, and these figures here in front of me since 1920 certainly indicate that there's been a lot of increases with material, like everything that we need, all the inflation and the CPI and material costs and labour costs and all that. It's going to struggle, and in 4 years we're making a difference of $300,000 in our maintenance and capital budget. So it is going to be a struggle.
Oh, yeah, I think, Councillor Jones, it has to be seen in the context of the fact that, though, we are endeavouring to use as much of our external grant funding as we possibly can in the roads as well. I mean, as Councillor Shoemaker's pointed out, we do have here in front of us a $13.897 million capital budget for roads. On top of that, there could be $15 million spent in QRA funding. So we could be asking our staff and our contractors to deliver over $28 million worth of work over the coming 12 to 18 months. So I think that's a serious amount of work, $28 million on our road network to deliver. I would be more concerned that can we actually deliver it because we have the resources to actually get the work done. But it certainly is a good conversation. Councillor Shoemaker.
I just had a couple of questions, Mr Mayor, just in relation to, I wanted to ask the question the life of a bitumen seal manager, Searle. Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr Mayor, 15 years is when we typically plan to reseal.
Patrol grade, or patrol grade is 1 year, if I'm correct, and the life of a gravel resheet.
In our asset management plan, we've currently got that at 16 years.
16 years. Yeah, I just, and in terms of the Betterment program, that is an option with the funding from QRA. Is that something that we could consider in Q1 budget review next year, or Q2, or whenever you're doing the work? I'm keen to understand in those instances where, you know, the flood damage has impacted this strip of road, but it would actually make sense to improve that with a culvert or improve that with whatever it may be was not there before the flooding. It's my understanding that if that's the case, that's a betterment project, and council has an opportunity to attribute funds to betterment projects.
That's through you, Mr Mayor. That's correct, and our staff are currently going through right now, preparing a list of proposed betterment projects that may be of use to us, particularly in waterways, floodways, etc., where they do wash out, and perhaps the rest of the road is fine, and you have this one section that's impassable. So we're currently preparing a list at the moment.
And just through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of your previous experience, Manager Searle, with those betterment projects, what is actually the process for council identifying funding for those? How's that worked in the past?
Typically, from a staff perspective, it's looking at the damage after an event, and for a good example might be a concrete causeway where there may be some damage to the structure, but a lot of the water's gone out to the approaches of the road and scoured out all of the approaches. So a betterment project may be that we actually extend the concrete up beyond along the approaches to protect that, and that's come from inspections looking at the damage. If there's particular projects that councillors or the community can see, then happy to take those and assess those as well.
Yeah, I get, sorry for the, Mr Mayor, just wanted to confirm, the process more for funding those betterment works in the past, like, it's tricky at the moment because we're going through our budget, we've got capital works and needs on our network, you know, outside of the needs of the flood. And I guess I'm just thinking about some of the commentary around restricted cash or the opportunity to use other funding mechanisms. I'm curious about how previous councils have actually identified those betterment projects and funded them. Is that something that you think could potentially come back in a quarterly review or something into the new year as we work through this backlog? Or I guess that's where I'm just curious how it actually works.
Yep, in terms of the funding, I would need to come back, but typically QRA will have a betterment program, just in terms of the percentage, whether it's 100% funding or whether there's an expectation that council puts in something. Probably need to take that on notice and get back to council.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess that's just something that's in the back of my mind around, you know, the opportunity with this flood works. There are areas that we know are unknown and prone to challenges that we can actually identify improving those projects. And just before I finish, I just wanted to acknowledge, I did drive through Bailly last night. It was 5:30 at night. I wanted to acknowledge the incredible crew working. It was dark, it was cold, and they'd done a hell of a lot of work in that part of the world yesterday, and just wanted to acknowledge the work they'd done. It was much better than when I'd driven through earlier in the week. So thank you to the team for the work they are doing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just wanting to know with regards to the potholes, because I know that to me the potholes are the biggest concern of community. They're saying they're smashing their cars to pieces. Are we holding off on some potholes because they could be covered under flood damage? And if that's the case, or if not, why is it seems to be taking a lot longer to fix potholes than it did, say, 12 months ago? I'm just wondering what the problem is with, I know we're getting increasing numbers of potholes, but it seems to be taking longer to fix any pothole.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The prime reason that it's taking a lot longer is simply because we have a huge number of potholes all through our network. We're not holding off on repairing potholes, regardless of whether it's flood damage or council maintenance. What we're actually doing at the moment is seeking an additional, in this particular case, a Flowcon machine. We had previously hired one from Logan City Council to support the maintenance effort, and we're currently going through that now because we do need additional resources in that space.
Thank you, Manager. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Oakins.
Through you, Mr Mayor, one of the things that people comment to me on, there'll be 3 potholes, council will come along and fix one pothole and leave the other 2. And I get asked that a lot. Why does that happen?
Yeah, we seem to get, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, we do hear that, and there's probably a few reasons for that. Quite often there are areas where potholes are repaired and new ones come along. There are circumstances where we have our literally an employee in a ute with small bags of premix, which is used to repair the potholes, and there's only a limited number of bags or a number of potholes that they can actually repair whilst they're going around the network. So in that, particularly in that case, you'll find that they'll look at the worst potholes and have to come back later to repair them. There are a significant number of areas where you might call them problem areas, where we're continually coming back to do the repairs, and that's an area where we're seeking to improve rather than reactive pothole repairs. It's looking at a proper dig out program, and we're currently going to market for council roads for a dig out program for contractors, and that's currently underway. We've recently done that with the state network, so we've currently got a local contractor commencing work on, and their actual dig out, not the reactive pothole repairs.
Would it be fair to say that if a crew are sent out and are they actually sent out and told that there are 2 potholes, that they can fix 2 potholes and they're the 2, or are the crew get there and there are 3 potholes, can they make that decision and just do the 3, or do they have to wait for it to go back up the chain for that 3rd pothole? Because it seems to be that they get there and, you know, neighbours of it will say, well, they did 2 and we asked them about the 3rd, and they said no, they haven't been told to do that.
No, there's absolutely discretion there if they're out there. One of the implementations that we're bringing in is our, it's call it a zonal system, where we're looking at, we've split the council area up into 14 zones, and the expectation is that the crew will go to that area and deal with the defects in that area, regardless of if there's 1 pothole or 100 potholes, and then they will move on to the next area.
Well, that's really good to hear, because it does make us look a bit stupid when that happens.
Okay, thank you, councillors. This has been a really good discussion. There's a lot of work to happen between now and the budget's adopted, obviously, in relation to this capital works budget, Mr. CEO.
Mayor, if I may have the indulgence of the meeting, and given and while we have the public here, so it was discussed about putting out a media release, and we're collecting the information for getting some public, not a preemptive, but just a clear understanding of what's been going on. So this is just the 4 flood events since November 12 last year. There's been 175 roads opened and closed with water over the road. In emergency inspections, approximately 3,200 road inspections so far under emergency works. A further 1,200 for the most recent flood event still to occur. There's 1,200 inspections. Emergency works completed since the first event, 557 roads across 4 events. A total of 2,645 emergency work entries have been completed, and there's many more still to come. And then recovery emergency work entries since the first event sit at 3,400. Now we're just getting that done. It's massive. It's seriously, the 4 events have just massively impacted, and this will go out to not only councillors but everyone, and it'll go through its approval process before it goes out. But I just thought I'd share those numbers as they've been coming through. They're massive.
Putting that in context, Mr. CEO. Council Committee, are we happy to resolve what we've got here in light of the fact that we've got our bus tour, we've got a lot of discussions to have over the next month? Yeah, happy with that. So, so we have the motion there that the committee received the proposed 22-23 draft budget for the Works CapEx program. Oh, sorry, I'm on the next page. It's for the yes, no, it is Works CapEx program, and provide guidance for inclusion in the continued preparation of the full South Bennett Regional Council 22-23 annual budget as presented / amended. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconded Councillor Duff. Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to acknowledge the incredible works team that are really going above and beyond to respond to those flood events. To have 1 event was quite astronomical at the end of the year, but to now be faced with 4, and I can only imagine how they're feeling after they've been out and fixed something and having to come back and do it again. Just really want to acknowledge them. I know it must be a really challenging time for the crew. There's certainly, I think, this CapEx program is a very ambitious project based on the fact that we have had such extensive damage to our network. And I just really want to acknowledge the work that's going in to trying to keep our community safe, to keep our roads functional. And I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well said. Thank you, councillor. Okay, shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.3 is the proposed Waste 22-23 CapEx program. That's at page 16. Okay, General Manager O'May, are you able to lead us through this? Thank you very much.
Yeah, through the chair, Craig's just pulling up the CapEx program there. So we have just got the two items in there. The Maidenwell Transfer Station, which is the carryover project that we've that's in this current year, but won't get completed. So that's been identified. Second one is the Nanango Way Bridge, so Way Bridge at the Nanango Waste Facility, and this is a legislative requirement from the Department of Environment and Science that we need to install that Way Bridge as part of our licence. We have got this one, and I think I noted this to council. We have put in a funding application to get 60% of this funded, but we have got in our this works program to have this fully funded from the restricted cash. So if we are successful with that grant application, we'll be bringing a budget revision back to council at an amended budget, a good one this time, to try and reduce that. And but we do, at this stage we haven't heard about that funding, so it's why we've got it fully funded. But they're just the two projects we've got in for next year.
Thank you, Manager. Let's have a discussion about this. Councillors, I suppose if I could just lead the conversation. We've started to have some really insightful discussions around the future of waste management in the chamber in recent times, and I pick up on Councillor Shoemaker's point in relation to collaboration with other regions, and I suppose reflecting on that over the last week, I've started to think about, I know there hasn't been necessarily a positive response so far about looking at options such as the new Yarrabin station, but I guess I am starting to think about, should we be starting to look at this more, to take a broader view of this in terms of the future of waste around not just recycling, absolutely recycling, but also working collaboratively with our other regional councils around us. I would certainly not want to see us invest in major pieces of infrastructure only to find, and this isn't talking against Maidenwell, please don't get me wrong, it may well be part of the solution, but only to find that in the future there's opportunities for us to share resources with other councils. So that don't necessarily impact on this year's budget, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in this space, and it's becoming it's coming to the forefront now in terms of how we manage waste. It's going to be something we need to consider carefully, building those closer collaborations with councils to our west and our south and also to our east as to opportunities to maximise benefits from resources. Toowoomba seem to be investing a lot of money in transfer stations. I've noticed at Kooyar and I think Yarraman again, I believe. So anyway, just it does make one think about the cross-boundary opportunities there. So anyone else for the speakers? Councillor Potter?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that transfer stations may be the way of the future moving forward, because our dump sites and tip sites are moving to end of life, with some of them in particular. So, and I think we do have to look at maybe a super tip, whether we're working with ourselves or working with local councils, whether it be Gympie, Western Downs. But we do have to start looking at different areas and different ways of disposal of waste. I know in America they do all these wonderful things, but I think some of them recently have been proven that they're not as great for the environment as they say they are, with the burning of some waste for power, because I always thought that seemed like a great idea. But I do think that it's something we need to probably put money towards in the future, because our tips won't last forever, our dumps won't last forever, and they do have a finite life on them.
Thanks, Councillor. I'm probably just wanting to lead us into, certainly digressing probably away from today, but I think when we look at our portfolios, in our corporate plan, we need to look at investing our strategic energy into waste, recycling, the future of energy production in our region. Councillor Shoemaker's raised these issues at our last discussion around portfolios. There is a big body of opportunity coming our way in this space, and I think we need to grab a hold of it and get on the front foot. So what are other councillors' thoughts around the future of waste management, as Councillor Potter has suggested? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. With reference to the Capital Works program, I'm certainly happy with this program. I know we'd had lengthy discussions last year about trying to find other ways to fund that Nanango Way Bridge, because it was such a significant amount of money, $500,000 for a way bridge. It's really hard to, for our ratepayers to do the heavy lifting and pay those fees when we are already paying such an extraordinary environmental levies and things. But I think, really just wanted to acknowledge the work of the team trying to go and find grant funding and things to help us with that. And I'm really looking forward to, hope we get a positive outcome with the waste strategy grant application we've also put forward. I'm happy certainly with the CapEx project. The only question I had in relation to this was with the Maidenwell transfer station, just with the extra pickup. I know we'd had conversations in the past, and I'm just probably a little bit grey in terms of, I just wanted to confirm our current trucks and our current pickup model would be able to accommodate for the Maidenwell transfer station pickup. General Manager O'May, if you can just confirm that for me.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. We really probably, when that one comes on board, we are really probably going to be at the point where we need to move to the third truck. We are running, I would say we're running 2.5 trucks at the moment. The guys are working Saturdays, Sundays, the trucks. So we are sort of, I would say, overutilising the current trucks, which leaves us at risk when we have breakdowns and that. So we're at that critical mass. We are juggling it at the moment, but as we add other facility on, then it will, and it's just fitting it in. We'll have to redo the roster and that. So it is definitely something, operations of that, we will need to look at. But yeah, just off the top of the head, I haven't got that roster with us at all.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly think we do need to take a careful look at that because, having guys driving 7 days a week picking up waste from different transfer stations probably isn't feasible into the future, and trying to sort of navigate that in a cost-effective way I think will be important. I had thought that third truck might be something that was on the plant and fleet considerations, maybe. Yes, yeah. So that'll come up there. I just, in terms of your conversation about waste, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to make the Chamber aware. The other day I got invited to a Topinga State School classroom to talk about what it meant to be a counsellor and why I signed up to be a counsellor. And what happened was I was actually railroaded by 25 Year 4 students who hammered me with questions about waste and how we were as councillors and representatives of the people taking care of waste and taking care of our environment. The questions they asked, which I just wanted to share with the Chamber, there were a number of them, but a couple of key ones that I thought may help inform the conversation. They said, Councillor Shoemaker, how many tonnes of waste go into landfills in the South Burnett each year? Now, the answer to that question, which I didn't have off the top of my head, I knew it was a lot. In 2021, the South Burnett disposed approximately 13,887 tonnes of waste into landfill last year. And from the waste audit we've done, we know that potentially 60% of that could have been diverted. Isn't that extraordinary? They said, Councillor Shoemaker, what's the life of the landfills in the South Burnett? And how many are there? Currently, there are 13 transfer stations, 4 waste facilities, transfer station with a landfill. And each of these have different lifespans, but with increased recycling and segregation of waste, we could actually extend those expected lifespans significantly. And I think when young people like that, Year 4 students, are saying, well, how long are we going to do this for? I think it's really important that we listen to them. And the third question they asked me was, how many bins do we collect each week, Councillor Shoemaker? And the answer to that across the South Burnett is 14,317 bins, which means each month we're picking up 71,589 bins. It's just an extraordinary amount of waste that we manage. And as I've spoken about before, and I'll continue advocating for, I'm very passionate about doing things better. And I absolutely think we're in a position to in the longer term, save, yes, money by managing our waste better, because I think it will come at a cost. We will be penalised for landfill into the future. I think we all know that. And I think the other thing is the environmental outcomes of that. When we've got 25 angry Year 4 students saying we should be doing this better, it's a pretty good indication for me that at the end of the day, the decisions we make here today will be the deciding factor as to whether they cover those costs or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, and no doubt their conversations they're having with their parents around the kitchen table. So it's important that we're not out of step with our community in this regard, in the emerging and changing expectations. It's a very good observation. So, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. As a follow-on to what Councillor Shoemaker was saying, we've got a very real opportunity right here, right now, to actually take a third of our waste away from our facilities already with promotion, and because a third of our waste we could bury it in our own backyard. You can put it in a compost bin because it's compost waste. So, that whether that be food scraps and things like that. So we have a real opportunity for, educating. The kids already know this. Children know what to do. They know what needs to be done. And I had a discussion with the Youth Council recently when they did their leadership course, and they brought up the fact that, about our recycling and sort of lack thereof. And we were discussing this, and I said, well, a third of our waste is already, and what people don't realise is by putting their food scraps into the bins, it actually makes more of an issue at our tips as well. So by taking their domestic scrap waste, doing their own composting, we know it's better for the environment. So there's nothing stopping us as a council from helping to promote something along the home composting side of things for starters for our community. A third of our waste gone already.
Sorry, my light. Councillor Henshin, that was a waste of words. Councillor Henshin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Shoemaker, how wonderful is that? We have Year 4 students that are right up to speed, probably 10 times more than some other people in our community. But to note, 17,000 tonne in our transfer and waste stations in the previous year. Take in consideration, that's probably going to increase by somewhere between 20 and 30% per year. Everything today is just throw away. And as Councillor Potter has alluded to, 30%, I think you mentioned 30%, we could do something with. And there's our Year 4s wanting to know the questions that they're staggering statistics, aren't they? I mean, they really are. And to think that 30% can go on top of that 17,000 tonne, that's roughly 1,700, that's 3,500 more tonne in 2 years' time. That's in itself could be, that alone could be negated in some shape or form with Councillor Potter's recognition of the 30% could be recycled or reused, or, and certainly myself, I know years ago, I mean, in my own experience, transfer stations, we never had one. We have 2 skip bins there in my community now. It gets emptied every 2 weeks. That's incredible. So, where was that, or what was happening to that years ago? But in the community that we live in, the world we live in today, it's all throwaway, isn't it? So there's a lot of work to do in this space, and I think, yes, with the right implementation, can be some serious savings and benefits with how we approach this, and it's a space that's ongoing, that we need a lot of conversation and some diligent work in that space to move forward.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess I want to draw attention to the elephant in the room. I guess the Maidenwell Transfer Station. We had the motion withdrawn this morning, but we're in a situation where I would like to see us commit to accepting this proposal moving forward, and the reasons being it's been going on for 2 years. I've listened to the conversations this morning. We want to get back to core business, and rubbish is a part of it. I've listened to the conversations around here now. We have 2.5 trucks now with staff working Saturdays and Sundays. So with this extra transfer station, it would warrant and justify the need for another truck to reduce the pressure on our staff and its core business. And at the moment, that also up there, without the community being proactive around those bins and keeping them all very tidy and presenting, because they do take pride in their little township village up there at Maidenwell. And as you come in from the Toowoomba Shire, you drive into Maidenwell, we've got the beautiful village sign there saying welcome to Maidenwell, South Burnett. Bang, right there behind it is an untidy and unsightly situation with rubbish. These people have been pretty much promised for 2 years now, ongoing. This council agreed to it. And Blackbutt, I raised the issue the other day, and I certainly didn't raise the issue of Blackbutt's rubbish to take away from Maidenwell. I think Maidenwell needs this. It's justified in the fact that early this week I saw an excavator up there with a grab bucket and a truck taking away the rubbish that was left from outside. I believe, I'm happy to be corrected, but I believe this will be a gated facility. And will restrict and stop all that. So there is significant savings in regards to the tidying up and all that sort of stuff. It'll be specifically for the Maidenwell area. And I would like to see us, yes, we're accepting this to, can't think of the word proposed, but I would like to see the Maidenwell Transfer Station committed to, as we have been in the last 2.5 years. We've had all mitigating circumstances, we've had the environmental impacts, we've had the change of ownership on land, we had to wait for all that. So there's a lot of things that added up to why this hasn't been done already. And to take this away from that community up there that they've been expecting, and they've done their bit as far as getting off their butts and keeping their town tidy and presentable by maintaining the bins and the rubbish that's dumped around those bins. So you can take those 2.5 trucks that we're talking about up to 3 trucks and justify the reason for that. Our staff are working 7 days a week, so there is significant reason for it and justifiable. And I'd like to have a conversation around that, and as this goes forward, commit to that, because we're very close to it's shovel ready. And GM May can add to this, but I believe that the land purchase and all that is progressing very positively now, and we're almost to a situation where we believe that we can almost move forward very quickly. So I'd like to have that conversation and take all the ifs and buts out of it so that we can know that we're moving forward with this to be presented to the budget.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. Yeah, certainly let's have that conversation. So I guess my thoughts around this were certainly not so that we won't ever do the Maidenwell Transfer Station. And I understand the community have been waiting for it. It was certainly enlightening to me to get the letter yesterday outlining the things that they've been doing as a community, because when I go there, it looks like it's a fairly neat and tidy transfer station. And I wasn't aware that the community were putting so much work into maintaining that. So it is important that we do have a fair and reasonable discussion around this. I guess for me, though, it was going to some of the issues we talked about this morning with what will be the OPEX implications of that for us in terms of if we do acquire another truck, and it may well be that we have to now anyway, because if we've got people working Sundays, that's not a good thing. But if we do acquire another truck, what are going to be the OPEX implications of that? And I just want to make sure that we fully understand that before we make the decision. And if we know that and we've done that and we make that decision in a very informed way, then I'm comfortable with that. But like Councillor Shoemaker, I'd like to to see what are going to be the costings around the extra truck, the driver, the operational depreciation, etc., on that extra vehicle, because that really does form part of the whole of life cost of providing a change to the service out there. So that was probably where my, I suppose, my desire was to get more information around this. The other thing was also the future of waste, to make sure that this is in keeping, and it may well be, in fact, very much in keeping with what is the future of waste management for our region. I know there's a transfer station at Kuya that has been built, I believe. How do we interact with that? And then thirdly, are we having external users coming up from outside our region to use Maidenwell? And how is this going to limit their capacity to do that? So I had a few questions around this, I suppose. I'm happy to have that conversation, to have those questions answered. Yeah, so Councillor Jones, perhaps you and General Manager O'May could help just inform us a bit more. Thank you.
In regards to the Kuya transfer station, Mr Mayor, that is a gated facility with a code on it, I believe, and that was what we were proposing for the Maidenwell transfer station, and that's what contributes to a significant reason why we need that transfer station at Kuya to be gated and coded. And the gentleman sitting to your left will be able to certainly add to this, because Mr Patch was a significant player in doing all this work, and he'd know a fair bit about it. But there's a lot of people come from outside of our region, and as it currently sits, they dump that rubbish on their way to work or passing through, going somewhere else, because they know it's there and they don't have to pay. There's no restrictions on it. So that is a significant. So as far as us going down there, they won't give you a code to get into that transfer station. I believe Cumbia is very similar to the setup. Is that right? Do they have a code or something to get in? So that restricts all that. So there's a significant benefit to it. And the community up there have, like, I can name 2 or 3 people that go down there once, probably twice a week, to clean up around those bins, pick all the rubbish up that's overflowing, falling out, old washing machines and cupboards and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's a core business issue. It's rubbish. I think we go up there, the trucks come up and unload those bins twice a week at the moment. They're always overflowing. Significant amount of rubbish goes through that little station there, and it is. We talk about appearance and presentation of our region. We drive in from Toowoomba coming back through there. You recognise that it looks tidy, Mr Mayor. You're probably lucky that you might drive through after one of the local residents have been down there and tidied it all up. But if you just happen to strike it on the day that they haven't been there, it is a disgrace. Simply a disgrace. And these people, 2.5 years, they've been waiting, progressing, and again, you know, I go back. It's core business. 2.5 to 3 trucks can be justified. We drop it down. The staff aren't working. There'll be a reduction in your overtime and your penalty rates that they're currently being paid. There's significant issues, and, you know, and as far, and again, we won't be sending out an excavator and a truck to pick up all this stuff on a regular occasion. I think it could be as regular as at least once every two weeks, could be once a month, but it does happen on a regular basis, and there is significant ongoing costs that this transfer station will reduce and fix up. So again, anyway, I'll just leave it there. I think this, I'd like to see the council commit to this moving forward, that we take it to the budget and be accepted.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So that certainly allays my concerns with the coding system on the security to be able to prevent us taking waste that should be going elsewhere. The OPEX cost, General Manager, that's obviously goes hand in hand with the fleet budget, but...
Yeah, we do really have to take that on notice as far as, I haven't got the OPEX cost here on what that is going to be. There will be a saving from the, not an overall net saving, but yeah, certainly that we do spend, we have to do, as well as a community, we're sending guys out there and equipment at times when you have the lounge chairs and those sort of things that get dumped there. So at all of the facilities that have the codes, they are certainly more easily maintained. They don't get that abuse by illegal dumping and waste being that. So there is a savings in that side of things, but then the cost will be in the operation of that, of transferring that waste. But yeah, it's probably something we would need to look at, that whole that network situation with all of the trucks and looking at all of the facilities and how they work. And that's something we could bring back. But I do think, I suppose, with this one, operationally, I'd be looking at least going forward. We have got project management, we have got designs done. We're probably looking at going forward and trying to at least secure the land so that we're not holding off too long and waiting another 6 months and that. So at least we could do that.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. My other, I suppose, concerns were, how does this align with the Blackbutt one in terms of, it was more around timing, not to say we wouldn't do Maidenwell, but are we going to be in a position to deliver on Maidenwell before 30 June 23 if we commit some of our funding to that, in light of the fact that we're having issues getting access to the land? And if that is going to be problematic, are we then better off to look at bringing forward the Blackbutt? I'm also, aware that Blackbutt people have been raising this dump issue for a number of years. I know 3 years ago, during the election campaign, there was a lot of people saying about this commercial dumping issue in Blackbutt. And I understand Maidenwell's a growing community, but I think we all understand too that Blackbutt's probably the fastest growing community in the region right now. And we certainly have to look at that as a serious issue. I know, Councillor Jones, you're not wanting to take away from that. Absolutely not. And I don't either. It was more about looking at the timing of the two projects. And it might be that Blackbutt is a little way away, but I would like to see us, no matter what we do, and I think we're probably on the same page here, provide some commitment to moving the Blackbutt solution forward, however that works. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I know you said that you'd seen it and it looked nice and neat, but someone from is it the Progress Association up there, contacted me and sent me some photos of what it does look like on a lot of occasions, and it was definitely wasn't what you'd call neat. So it was pretty disgusting looking. So, I'd have to support doing something up there. It's not a good look.
Okay, thank you. Who are we up to? Councillor Henshin, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through you. Yeah, look, I think moving forward, Maidenwell one, smash it, get it out of the way before it goes to some ridiculous price, and work very hard on the Blackbutt one moving forward. Like, again, do the costings on it, and I think the Blackbutt one, in the event of the Maiden one being completed and another truck, if we can incorporate another truck in our budgetary talks, it just then complements the Blackbutt one. So, yeah, I think it will prove to be very cost efficient.
Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm really pleased to hear that it's going to be gated, and because my concern was that we were just catering for a lot of outside people, cross-border dumping, which is currently what's happening at Cloyna. Like, we have that facility there, and people are just, it's a transfer station, but people are just using it across the border, like from the Gympie Regional Council. So just into the future, probably flagging to put a fence and gates on the Cloyna one too would be useful.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Oh, sorry, I couldn't see your light there, do you? Councillor Potter.
Yeah, look, I'm actually going to just sort of repeat what Councillor Henshin said with regards to the truck. I know he mentioned about if we had to do extra runs with regards to Maidenwell, it could probably work in with Blackbutt. But I'm just thinking with that 500 that we've put in for Nanango, and if we're lucky enough, that might be an extra, if we're lucky enough to get that grant, that might be an extra bit of money that we're able to put forward to Blackbutt anyway.
Yeah, good point. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I did ask a number of questions which council have got the update in relation to the Maidenwell transfer station and the Blackbutt dumping situation. There's quite a lot of work that has to happen from the responses that we've received this morning. You'll see there's quite a lot of work that has to happen with regards to the Blackbutt, the scoping of the Blackbutt tip and what that looks like into the future. I do think it is very important that we as a council, as elected representatives, do reach out to our elected representatives in the Toowoomba region and have some conversations with them around waste into the future, and just make sure that we are actually on, if there are opportunities to collaborate, that we're at least opening those doors. I still think that potentially looking at into the future, as waste becomes more and more difficult to manage, particularly in regional areas, we may need to look at more collaboration with our neighbouring regions to cover those increasing costs. I had a conversation with Mayor Hardwick earlier this week at the Wide Bay Resources Forum, and he's also very open to having some conversations about the opportunity to collaborate in regards to waste into the future. And so to your statements there around the Cloyner facility, Councillor Duff, I think if there was ever a time to sort of just open the door and start to try to build that conversation, I think it would be now. I think our officers actually do a great job in trying to talk to each other and share industry advice and knowledge, but I think that bigger picture strategic lens needs to be thrown over this problem. And I would like to see us, once we bring down our budget, that's actually a takeaway from the conversations we've had in relation to the budget, is rearranging some meetings with our neighbouring councillors to discuss all things waste, and certainly doing a little bit more work to scope and fully understand what both the OPEX and CAPEX costs of the Blackbutt scenario is, and what is the best option for the people of Blackbutt, because absolutely agree, the town is growing, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And with that, we need to be able to provide the core service of waste collection. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. In support of that, I'd certainly hope that moving forward we'll look at how we, as strategic leaders, can invest in the furtherance of item 4 on our corporate plan in relation to environmental sustainability, and turn our minds to that as a serious part of the work that we do at this level of the organisation. General Manager O'May, to wrap up.
Yeah, just probably just a few comments to wrap up, and just talking about regional collaboration. We've had, with the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Council, so council's been involved with regional waste study across there for a number of years to develop the waste study. Councils do work well together, but it can be a timing issue depending on the needs of council. So, but in a quick 30 seconds, our strategy is basically to do away with our landfills. So as our landfill airspace fills up, we will close them and transfer that waste to one of our other facilities. And our ultimate goal would be that hopefully by the time our landfills are all filled, that there is an alternative strategy. There is zero landfill, or if we do have to go away, the costings have been completed, that it will be easier to truck it to, whether it be a regional facility. And where we're situated, we're talking to the Wide Bay Regional Councils, but we also, because we're on the edge and the Mayor is part, we've agreed to be part of the Darling Downs Southwest region of mayors. The Mayor's been invited to collaborate with them on waste management. So we're sort of sitting in the middle, hedging our bets. We don't mind which way our waste goes or who we partner with, whichever. So we want to work with whichever is. But at the current moment, as we've all talked about at the moment, we don't want to have waste coming from out of our region and us catering it. If we want to lock up our facilities, all the councils are the same, and this is the issue we're having at Yarraman. We need to have those conversations, but the Toowoomba Regional Council aren't keen for their ratepayers to be, and some of it's a perception issue, that they don't want to see South Burnett, our waste coming in there. So, yeah, we definitely are having those conversations and appreciate council support at that level that we can look at that. Just on our waste management strategy, just as Councillor Shoemaker highlighted before, we have also in our OPEX budget put in for a grant to do a regional waste strategy. So it's a waste management and climate change adaptation strategy. So we have got funding to actually redo that, and that will look at a lot of the issues that Council has been talking about this morning. And just a final plug, Councillor Potter talking about composting and worm farms. So we have got a workshop on the 15th of June in the Kingaroy Town Hall. So we actually, media just went out this week, and we'll plug that. So yeah, introduction to composting and worm farm we are putting on that Wednesday night. Shameless plug.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thanks, General Manager. Are we able to, Mr. CEO, I know we've been doing some media around that. Can we promote that through our school networks? Because as Councillor Schumacher's articulated, there's obviously a lot of interest in this from our younger people and their parents. So.
Made a note of that before, Mayor,
Oh,
so
yeah,
we'll
already
put
got
out
it.
some extra education, community information.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, so we can promote the worm farm. Perhaps that's a good place to start. One first small step. Thank you. Okay, well, I think, look, in terms of the Maidenwell issue, having heard.
Through the mayor.
Sorry, hello. Oh, hello,
Yeah,
Mike.
sorry,
Good morning.
Mike, Manager Mike here. Look, could I just add just a few brief comments because it's been very insightful this morning, but could I just add for council's information, staff have been working fairly heavily in relation to waste in the last 6 or 8 months that I've been around, and even prior to that with the manager, previous manager Patch. There is the regional planning for the Wide Bay Burnett. We have been working collaborative with the councils in that area, and we are preparing. There is a draft. It's nearly got to the draft stage now. A Wide Bay regional plan. Which is a 25-year strategy for the areas for Bundaberg, Cherbourg, Fraser Coast, Gympie, North Burnett and South Burnett. So that should be released soon with a draft, and I was intending to bring that back to council so that we can have discussions, have regard to the discussions about recycling, about waste management strategies, and all our transfer stations. So there is a lot of conversation going around that within the staff, within our area, and I will bring further information as I'm able to come to light to bring council up to date. But it is an evolving space, and it is certainly the future, and the government has, I understand it, I don't know if it's been released yet, but there is a project. I've had a discussion with the project manager for Queensland Regional Waste Strategies, and he's an overarching project manager who's going to coordinate some of these regional plans. So that's exciting, and there is a lot of work to be done, but I'll update council as matters come to hand, and as it relates to our specific area. I just thought I'd add those comments.
Yeah, thanks very much, Manager Lowell. That's very very exciting to hear that that's progressing with you and your team. Thank you very much. Just coming back to Maidenwell then, I guess what I'm hearing today, and I'd certainly happy to support it in terms of, as one councillor, in terms of what I'm understanding is that the Maidenwell arrangement is future focused. It seems to be part of what will be a future strategy in terms of the collection and transfer as against the dumping of waste into the ground. That the OPEX costs, there's opportunity to integrate Maidenwell perhaps with Blackbutt so that we can share the OPEX costs across two solutions for those two communities. And also to be able to get controls around who and what is dumped there. And if this facility is going to give us the capacity to be able to open up opportunities for recycling for the community out there as well into the future, well, that would be clearly integrated with the strategy. So, so thank you very much, everyone, for enlightening me this morning. That's been a good conversation, and I'm certainly happy to support it on that basis. Moving forward seems to be the right thing to do. So thank you, Councillor Jones. Yeah. Did you want to wrap up, Councillor Jones? Anything before we go to the motion?
No, Mr Mayor, other than that's a commitment made, and we'll take that through, and we won't hopefully have this conversation again. We'll just see the project completed and the benefit to the community and the region as a whole. So I thank the council as a whole for supporting the Maidenwell people up there. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. And I really just wanted to get that motion out so we could have a discussion, to be honest. Not. I apologise to the community if it created any degree of alarm. Okay, so recommendation is that the committee receive the proposed 22-23 draft budget for the Waste CapEx program and provide guidance for inclusion in the continued preparation of the full South Burnett Regional Council 22-23 annual budget as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Henson. Further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, we now have... I'll move that we adjourn for morning tea. Councillor Henson has moved that we adjourn for morning tea. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Resume the meeting. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Those in favour, Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We're up to 6.4, which is the NRM and Parks proposed CapEx 22-23 at 17. Thanks, General Manager O'May.
Through the chair, I think is Craig going to bring it up. No changes to what we went through on Monday at the workshop. I suppose just the comment to start with, all of the works of Queensland, I think projects we've got later in the agenda, so they're yet to be confirmed. But I suppose quickly running through from top to bottom. So the first couple of projects are at the Kingaroy Airport, repainting the above ground fuel tanks. They're deteriorating and need that maintenance work done. Resealing the car park and the airport lighting upgrade. So this is a part funded through grant. It is a project that was costed probably 2 years ago prior to the grant going in, and the final costs, we are expecting it to be well in excess of the grant funding. So that's what the 150,000 we're talking there in depreciation will be council's contribution. Next projects are at the cemetery, so Kingaroy Cemetery, work on resealing the car park, and then developing the new section in the lawn cemetery, and then expansion out at Proston Cemetery. So they're the 3 projects listed there. The next in the park, so as I said, we've got the projects, the continuation of Works for Queensland allocations in 21-22. So there are a number of projects. So the Lions Park refurbishment, Banarkin refurbishment, QE2 Park Stage 1. So those first 3 projects, they've already been approved through a previous council resolution. So they're just the balance funds that haven't been spent this year. The Mergen, the half court, the dog off leash area, they're part of the Works for Queensland discussion, so they're to be confirmed. Proston Railway Park and the QE2, the Stage 2, so they have already been confirmed under that initial. Tipperary Flats, so this is an allocation we had in just to do some work at Tipperary Flats. So we've listed that down as depreciation, but I think there was discussions, depending on the extent of work that council wants to do there, that could be, you could put a 0 on the end of that quite easily and not have enough. Which needs to be. And the final one is the Memorial Park. So this is an allocation that was, again, this is yet to be confirmed as part of the Works of Queensland. So with the master planning we're currently doing at the moment, it was basically to set aside some funds to actually be able to complete some works. So individual projects haven't been confirmed. So those Works of Queensland discussions are sort of fairly critical to those. In the public amenities, we've got, and this is something we've generally, with our depreciation, we've just been allocating a certain amount, so $100,000 towards doing public amenities. The Mergen free camping area, and as we mentioned, 100,000 probably isn't enough to do that project, so it would have to be done, or you'd have to look at additional funding the following year and do it over a multi-year project to completely redo that free camping. But that's probably the worst toilet block that it's the highest priority. The second one, the Wandi ones, are part of the Works for Queensland allocation that's already been approved, so that'll be just a balance of completing those projects. Again, Coolabunga Sale Yards is $80,000 depreciation allocation just to do works there. That's just a continued upgrade there. Things like we may look at external fencing and just it's we probably just take guidance from that Coolabunga working group on the priority of assets. So there's a couple of councils on that. So again, it's just we've tried to have this, make sure we have a little bit of an allocation in each of these areas, that we're not actually just missing some of those high priority needs. The tourist facilities, so Boondooma, at Boondooma there, residence kiosk. So these are just renewal works out there, the bathroom, internal, external painting, and the manager residence painting out at the dam. We do need to look at some. We have just recently had an audit with and through our food licensing. We do have to look at some floor covering works out there, which we are just proceeding with because they're a requirement. So that's where with the list there. This is probably where I stopped the other day, I suppose, as far as, and I haven't got it on that list, I don't think, Craig, but just as far as our depreciation, we're up to $600,000 of council-funded depreciation at this point. So the projects down below have been flagged with more for external funding, or whether it be Works for Queensland or further consideration. But so we've just probably tried hold up in not fully allocating the available depreciation in this asset class, given that we are in a deficit position. So, so I'll just present that and just open it. Mr. Mayor, if you're happy to go back to.
Yes, thank you, General Manager May. Okay, well, let's have a discussion around this, and let's just keep in context that this is really just the first start, very early stages in terms of the CapEx budget here. There's a lot of work to yet be done with conversations to be had with Council around Works for Queensland, particularly. So, Councillor Duff, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just what you're saying that you're funding 600,000 of the depreciation. What do we normally fund?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's around where we have been getting at that $500,000. And that's not the full funding. It's just really what we're living within our means.
Yep. Okay. Just through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of ones I did. It was actually Mayor Otto sent through that I was to flag the two, like things like the Christmas tree, like Mergen needs a new Christmas tree and so does Heisel wants one. Those kind of ones, are they Works for Queensland, or can they be squeezed in budgets, or are they operational, or how does that work?
Yeah, through the chair. So it's probably either or. Like, obviously, if we can get some Works for Queensland, you can fund them out of those. But if you don't, then you are falling back to using council capital. We have got a report coming to the standing committee, so the guys have already done a report on those Christmas trees, and that's where the recommendation was that we come back in, and just given the timing, I think recommendation that we look at, say, a first quarter budget review. But if there is Works for Queensland allocation, because the Mergen Christmas tree is one that it's at end of life, it probably does need doing, and then while we are doing that, look at the options, and we were looking at an option for Christmas tree at Heisel and one for Cumbia, we did want to have a discussion around Christmas trees and the costs.
Is Councillors happy if we leave that as something to be considered as part of a whole review of what's needed across the region? The report comes back and then we can look at it as a first quarter review. Happy with that? Yeah, it's comfortable with that. We'll go to Councillor Erkins and then across to Councillor back to Councillor Henson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask? I don't really understand the funding. So, Works for Queensland, is that what we would be looking at putting Tipperary flat on? And then how does that happen? You know, I don't understand how you get those grants, or do you actually put projects forward?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Erkins. So, Council received $5.6 million and from Works for Queensland from the state government, and we have to spend that in 3 years, this year, next year, and the year after. And it's really, we've got discretion on that. So it's just a bucket of money that council can use on a whole range of projects across the region to spend that $5.6 million. So council could, for example, choose to use some of that to do works on Tipperary Flat, whether it be drainage works or other things. Or if we chose not to do that, but we still wanted to do Tipperary Flat, that would then have to come out of, for example, council's bank account from our funded depreciation.
So where do we actually, where is it? $5.6 million. Where do you see what's already been spent out of that?
Yeah, so yes, Councillor. So item 6.7 today is where we'll see the full $5.6 million list. So we'll get to that shortly. Yeah, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Henson, then back to Councillor Shoemaker. Thank
you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that, I don't see, and clarify a little bit of clarification, privilege gap wind farm viewing platform. Was previously in a Works for Queensland budget, I believe, and talked about last week, I think, at the standing committee after a meeting, but I don't see it there anyway. Just flag that.
Can we perhaps make note of that, General Manager O'May, for future discussions as we move through the budget? Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I can't. Sorry, Danielle. Yeah, thank you. I've got you now. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'm just, I know we've got 80,000 there for the Kingroy Lions Park refurbishment, but my concern is with that is that's, we're trying to make that into a universal access park, and I just don't think, you know, with that amount of money to do the work that needs to be done. I know we've got the money aside to refurbish the toilet, I believe Manager Leanne, GMMA, but I just don't think that's going to be enough to do all the path work and also looking at doing the playground area and wheelchair access to the toilets, which we actually do not have.
General Manager, just in terms of that, scope and expected budget, Manager, do we have any indication at this stage as to what we really should be looking at to do it once and do it well?
Yeah, I think that we did do a master plan down there, I think, which Councillor Potter is talking about. But yeah, they're definitely, and I haven't got the breakup of the individual components, but yeah, my understanding that there wasn't enough funding to complete that whole, all of the works there that was on the master plan. So yeah, would have to bring back those split components, but yeah, it wasn't to complete all of the work.
So, General Manager, would it be possible for Council to be able to see the full costing on that so we can consider it? And if it's a priority of Council to get it done in the next couple of years, whether we'd be prepared to look at factoring that into the 2-year program that we're left on W4Q? Perhaps that could come back. Councillor Potter, would you be happy if we get that full report back and then we can consider that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, yeah. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. If we're talking to the NRM and Parks capital project that's before us without the W4Q stuff, very supportive of this program. I think it's a reasonable program and is looking at some of the big issues in our region that we need to work toward rectifying. One of those areas that I know we've had people present to council about, and certainly there's a huge passion in the community about, is the rail trail. And I understand at the moment we don't currently depreciate the rail trail. I just wanted to understand from General Manager O'May, I know we were talking about potentially an insurance claim through QRA, which may or may not come off, but I just wondered, I saw in your capital program there's been no allocation for the rail trail, and I wondered if there were some other means or funding that you had in mind, or what your funding strategy for the trail was.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so as far as the rail trail damage, yeah, we do look like we'll have TMR funding to get it back operational. So yeah, just as a response to the funding, but future upgrades and maintenance of it, that we do depreciate the bitumen seal component of it, so that is depreciated. But the land itself, there is no depreciation on it. So, but those assets on it, so the bitumen seal is depreciated. So over time, that would it is something where you could allocate funding to.
Thank you, GM. Councillor Shoemaker.
And just supplementary question through you, Mr Mayor, just with that rail trail surface, does for the next 12 months it will, with those works from DTMR, you're confident it'll it's not at its end of life or anything like that at this point in time?
Yeah, it is probably working with them to get those repairs. There will be some sections that need complete where we've lost the whole bit. But yeah, we're looking at external funding for those bits. So yeah, probably the next 12 months would be a matter of actually just seeing where they land, and there is still discussions with QRA whether there is other funding that comes available for the rail trails that we can utilise. But yeah, so it's the funding at the moment is really just to get those immediate sections repaired and back up and going, and then keep keep those discussions open with QRA on future works.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks. Just on the councillors' proposals, Manager Patch, if you can, I raised it the other day around the rural and skate park and the concept plan and the proposal down there. We know the community wants it, but there's always been conversation around those blocks of land where the tennis courts are used. We came back from Cherbourg the other day. I see there's a new tennis net being put up. That's the first bit of activity that I've seen in well and truly 2 years. And the grass, I don't know whether our guys mowed the grass, or the men and women, or whether it was whatever. But yeah, I would certainly, if we take this through to the budget, there's a lot of conversation to go around that, I think, like to have that 200,000 allocated in there. Like, there's obviously conversations, and just a little bit of history before this term of council, we went there. We told the community down there that they could utilise it, have a $75 a year lease as long as they used it. Nothing, absolutely nothing happened. And we had a conversation too with the community that said, if it's not utilised or whatever, you'll probably lose it. So that's prior to this term. And I know that the community down there'll be certain people that won't want to do it and all that sort of stuff, but they want a skate park as well. But that, again, and here we are at Geelong. We're taking away the Geelong tennis courts to implement another better facility that the community wants out there that's going to be more beneficial with the proposal out there. So, yeah, just to have that in there moving forward, I'd like to see us go out consultation and give them other options and help them, you know, if those blocks of land were to come available for sale, for whatever, or whatever we decide, we can utilise that money to put back into the community and get a benefit that the tennis courts, let's be fair, very, 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 very rarely used. If we put a skate park in there utilising that money, I can't see why we wouldn't do that, or at least discuss that. So I just have concerns with that 200 sitting in there and the concept before we go and have a chat to the community with further ideas.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Sear, can we perhaps flag the need to bring forward what General Manager O'May to embark on a community consultation program in relation to the future of that land area and the tennis courts, as time allows? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, definitely can. I suppose we probably haven't shown this really well. I'm proposing that we actually draw the line under or above where the council proposed projects. We just didn't want to lose projects that had been discussed and talked about, so that's why we dropped them in. But I already look at bringing forward the ones above the project for inclusion in next year's, and then have the discussion and if there is other funding available, look at taking the projects. But we just were mindful that there were projects, and that's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure we would have missed projects from some councils, but we needed to make sure we were capturing the discussions like the rural and skate park for inclusion in future projects. So, yeah, my idea would be to propose the above the line, and these things just make sure we continue to scope and work towards inclusion in future budgets.
Thank you, General Manager. Maybe an item for your 22-23 operational plan is to embark on a consultation process with the rural and community in relation to the tennis courts and the land there. If you're happy with that, Councillor Jones. Yeah, before we do anything at all, as you said, yeah, okay. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one further question. Just with the NRM Parks CapEx project here, I just wanted to understand, using the levels of depreciation that you've allocated and with the grant funding that's being proposed. So, you know, $1.461 million worth of grant funding and only $600,000 worth of council depreciation. So I just wanted to understand, we've been working through the percentage of your actual depreciation that would be funded with this budget. I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I suppose, without having the exact figures, so buildings, facilities and parks are in the one asset class. So in rough numbers, we've got probably $3 million of depreciation in that asset class. If we're putting up a bit over 500, is it 600,000 here, Leanne, in the facilities area is probably around that $1 million. So it's around probably 50% or essentially unfunding. So that's the decision we'll be looking at these individually. When council has the whole capital project, you can look at that. But I suppose we're just not fully allocating the depreciation because we know it's not there, so there will have to be some unfunded. So we've essentially probably 50% is a rough guide of what we've unfunded in the programs.
Okay, we've got the recommendation that the committee receive the proposed 22-23 draft budget for the NRM and Parks CapEx program, excluding Works for Queensland projects, and provide guidance for inclusion in the continued preparation of the full South Bennett Regional Council 22-23 annual budget as presented, amended. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers? No?
I think it just needs
Councillor
to read
Shoemaker?
as presented.
As presented, yeah. Okay. So it'll take the word amended off there. Thanks, Bree.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so go to the vote. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. Would we like to move Works for Queensland up? Deal with it now so we can keep on a roll with this. Yeah, good suggestion. Thanks, Mr. CEO. I'll now move that we escalate item 6.7 to the next item on the agenda. Do we have a seconder? Second for that? Councillor Henson, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Over to you. Sorry, Chairman, we've got you on the hop there. We'll just wait for you to get that up on the screen. Thank you.
Yeah, Patty's here. Queensland first.
Are we going to 6.7, Mr Mayor?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in regards to the 6.7, would it not be fair to, if you have a look at questions on notice 7.1, Works of Queensland water funding, we're discussing that, whether or not we bring that money out from that water funding. Should we discuss whether we agree to take that out before we start the Works of Queensland program?
To CEO, are we able to have a broad discussion without putting any emotions forward around those two items? Yeah, okay, so we can discuss those together. They all relate to Works for Queensland, so CEO is happy for that. Let's have a general discussion around these two items, okay? All right, so we've got the Works for Queensland up there, and we've got 7.1 shown there. We've got that question on notice with the responses there. So let's go around the table. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I know in our workshop and some of the discussions put forward that some councillors have proposed not spending the $2 million that had been allocated on Works for Queensland for water infrastructure, not spending that on the Mount Warulin Reservoir and actually instead drawing that from restricted cash. I had a significant number of questions about that. And at this point in time, I'm not supportive of that motion to change that project. And further to the information that I've received that's been shared with councillors to date, I'd like to give a few of the reasons why. The first one is that at the end of if we were to use the current restricted cash to build the Mount Warulin Reservoir, there would be nothing, very little left in our cash reserves for emergency water works. And if something significant happened to the network, to the water network, and we had used our restricted cash, we would potentially have to either push out other vital capital works projects into future years, or we would have to, seek emergency funds from our cash deposits to deliver on those works. Another reason why I'm not supportive of the change is because the current modelling suggests that in our 10-year capital program, cash would be tight if we were to fund. We've already got $800,000 that would be funding from restricted cash to deliver the water CapEx program that's already been delivered. We would actually have a shortfall in year 6 and 10, and that would mean that in those years, based on the current information in the models, council's projects out in years 5 and 6, which are new in nature, and therefore council would need to either borrow in these outer years or increase the rates or find grant funding to assist with the costs. And when we look at those models and the costs, we've currently based our CapEx program and our 10-year program on a 6% increase in access and a 1% increase in consumption charges for high volume users. If we were to not support this project through Works for Queensland, we would have to borrow or look at increasing our rates by 7 to 8% to ensure there's enough, our water access charges, to ensure there's enough cash in there available to fund the rest of the 10-year program. And the other big one for me is in years 28 and 29, we've actually put $2 million in our 10-year program to purchase additional water allocation. And we know last year that we actually got very close, if not exceeded, our current water allocation. And so it's my thinking that we'll actually need to purchase, and we have discussed purchasing a smaller amount of allocation to cover those shortfalls and certainly enable industrial growth and residential growth in Kingaroy. So I'm concerned that if we fund this project with borrowings, if we don't fund this project with the grant funding, and it is a critical water infrastructure project, I want to highlight that, then we would be setting up our future council to have to borrow to significantly increase water access charges and water consumption charges. And to give us an idea of borrowings, you know, if you borrow an amount of $2 million, the actual interest rate of 5.5% means you're actually paying another $170,000 a year in interest for that luxury. So I am torn because absolutely I've got a list of projects here, because I'm not sure my council will support this, that I know are important to the people in my division. But I also know that water infrastructure is a core function of council, and that this project, if we were to fund it from grants, it actually reduces the impact on the ratepayer, and that's very important to me. So I'm actually not proposing moving that $2 million out of water infrastructure upgrades on the information that's been provided this morning with regards to the future impact and the impact on our ratepayers. And the inability to access cash, should anything go wrong, the inability to access cash to purchase additional allocation, which we know we need.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just ask one question through to General Manager Lowe with regards to the amount of water we have in holding capacity for water in Kingaroy, please?
I can't give you the exact figure of all the combined reservoirs, but our raw water source from Wooroolong is 2 meg.
Right. With that in mind, Mr. Mayor, we went to Cherbourg and we're very blessed to go and see them. They have 4 megalitres for the Cherbourg community now for water storage. And they are for a resident size of, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about 300, I think, in Cherbourg. So 4 megalitres for Cherbourg, and we have 2 megalitres for Kingaroy. So I'm right behind what Councillor Shoemaker has said. I too have a list of things that I would love to get done for Division and for the Kingaroy people, but I do believe that water is the main issue, and I'm not willing to take this off the list either.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that we need to fund the Kingaroy water, but I think we need to do it a different way. I think we need to borrow the money because, as has been said in the chamber, previously, that we can borrow for the water, which is an intergenerational project, whereas those small projects, like, for example, finishing Lions Park and those jobs that we need to do to help with our unfunded parks and gardens depreciation, for example, we can do with this Works for Queensland money. I think it would be wise to spend that Works for Queensland money on those projects that badly need doing in our facilities and parks and gardens and all of those. It will open it up to a lot of benefit to our community, and we can do the water a different way. But certainly supportive of, but thinking about borrowing rather than using the Works of Queensland money.
Okay. Just a question to the staff. So just in terms of these questions here at 7.1 that we've got, so if we use restricted cash to build Mount Rural and Reservoir, just want to confirm the responses here. We're not going to be left with cash reserves to do anything if there's emergency works. I know, for example, we had that issue at Nanango last year with the sewerage line. Yeah, you're right. If that happens, we're not going to have any cash to be able to do those sorts of repair. Just that question first.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely correct. If we had a, put it this way, I guess, if we had another Woorolra incident, we wouldn't have enough money to cover it.
Yep, so that's clear. And if we are to use our restricted cash, or in addition to that, years 6 and 10, we'll go outside of we'll go over our available restricted cash on the current forecasts. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor.
And do we know how much by in each year?
Defer to Kerry, please, Mayor.
Thank you, Kerry.
You're right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the current modelling that we're doing as we go out, it's down a little bit later in some of the questions, but we range from starting at around 700,000 deficit in our restricted cash, and we go up to 5.8 roughly in about year 9, and then we start coming back into sort of getting closer to a neutral position after that.
So it peaks out at 5.8 million deficit.
Yes, at this point
in year
time,
9
yes.
at this point. Okay, thank you. And rates that have been modelled in the next 10 years, were they on the 3 and 6%?
They were 6% all over, except for high volume, which was modelled at 1.
6 and 1, thank you. Okay. And so at 6%, we'd be $5.8 million in deficit in year 9. Okay, that clarifies that, thank you. Council's borrowings at the end of this term with the Goodenbrook upgrade, I guess we don't know what Goodenbrook's going to cost at this stage, do we? So that's probably hard to predict, or do we have any information, Acting General Manager?
Through you, Mayor, you were talking Goodenbrook AFC upgrades, or?
Yes.
Yeah, no, we've definitely haven't got a definitive figure on that, but our latest one that we got in market update, excuse me, Matt, in November, I think it was about 18.5 million is what we thought it was.
Thank you. And in terms of the off-site storage, the 10-year capital program, so we peak out at year 9, included in that 10-year capital program is the purchase of water allocation and the capital costs of establishing the off-site storage facility inside that 10-year capital program at this stage?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, yes.
It is inside that. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. All right. I'm comfortable with those answers, thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just to be heard, Mr. Mayor, but my views on this, I think we need to secure the water, and in reference to the councillors, that we could comments around Lions Park, excuse me, as an issue, as a project that we could spend this money on. I would nearly bet that if you went out and asked the people of Kingaroy what they would rather have secured as an upgrade to Lions Park or security of their water moving forward, and I think this $2 million certainly goes well towards that. So I'll be voting to keep the 2 million in the water infrastructure at the moment, yes. So that's where I sit on that one.
Thank you. And just just in that regard, water security, Councillor Jones raised it for Kingaroy. General Manager, at the moment, we've only got 2 megs of storage for the entire Kingaroy, including Swickers and the town. Is that what you're saying? Only 2 megs?
I know, just clarify, Mayor, that is the treated clear water storage to send to town. So we have several other reservoirs on the hills around Premier Drive and a few others, names escaping. But yeah, but we haven't not got the industry standard 3-day supply that we should have. We can't do that.
And do we know what that supply level is? How many megs? But the 7, and this would take us to 7 megs if council had resolved to complete the project. If we fix the one we've got and we build the new one, that'll take us to 7 megs with the extra 5.
That is correct, Mayor, and that will actually satisfy our source water problem that we've had, and that's the first step in making up the deficit in the network. And so that's actually for planning for the future as well. So it'll satisfy our existing deficits as well as cater for the future when we do the last stage, which is a reservoir up on the hill there.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just in response to Councillor Jones's statement about whether you asked the community whether they would prefer Lions Park done up to water security, I think if you asked the Nanango residents whether they would want something done, I think we're not saying that we're not going to do the water, we're just saying we need to fund it a different way. And I think there's residents across the South Burnett who would think that they have a lot of projects that they would like to see put forward as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, 100%, through you, Mr Mayor, 100%. I would like to see Nanango's water supply certainly fast-tracked, because that is a problem, and I believe that by doing this in Kingaroy and all that sort of stuff, it's, as I've heard in this chamber a number of times, we've got to start somewhere. And if it's Kingaroy first and working our way across and how we get to Nanango, I've always been trying to get water to Nanango. I've always raised it. I'm happy to be corrected if people haven't heard that I've always said water supply to Nanango is a priority. But yeah, I just think totally understand what you're saying, and all the residents, and like I say, I try not to use the terminology of the people in my division. I like to go across and look at this as a regional thing, and it's a regional thing. Kingaroy needs this water. It's a 1 in 3 chance of failure and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we've got plenty of water now, but it's going to be dry again, and we need that extra allocation. We've spoken along, and Mr Mayor, you've led the charge on needing the extra allocations for water and all that sort of stuff, because it's a need. I can remember the publicity that we put out, the media, and compared to what was going on in Stanthorpe and all that sort of stuff, and we were so close to it. We need to secure our townships across our region, and unfortunately for the rest of the region, Kingaroy's at the top of that list. We need to get that. Nanango is high priority. We need to get water into Nanango. Blackbutt's got an issue with water, the amount of water we got down there. I've got a developer that I'm trying to get him to come and make presentation to council. He wants to do a development on the edge of town. Where's the water coming from to supply that? Where's our sewer? And we've got massive problems right across the region with water, sewage and everything. So yeah, I'm comfortable, and I'll be supporting that the 2 million stays where it is for that reason.
We'll just stay with you, Councillor Erkins, and we'll come back to Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
Can I just ask, and I got this from your hatred, my love, social media, people in Nanango complain about the water supply, they complain about the taste of drinking it, and they complain about the effect it has on hot water systems. So I've seen on social media that Kingaroy residents also complain of the same issue. And I know that when Nanango used to get their water from the weir in Nanango, the water quality was a lot worse than it is now coming from the bores. So I just wonder what Kingaroy people, like, do they drink the town water, or do they use tanks?
Yeah.
Or do they use tank water?
Got to be to drink.
Acting General Manager.
Oh,
Through you, Mayor. Anecdotally, councillor, they use the town water for outside purposes and use tank water for their drinking supplies.
So by taking, at this stage, by talking about bringing Kingaroy water to Nanango, if the plan is to take the water that they have in Kingaroy, and at this stage, the bores, there's plenty of water in the bores to service Nanango's water at this stage. The water that comes from Tarong, if that's going to be the same quality as what Kingaroy have, I don't really think you're going to be giving the Nanango residents something that they're going to be happy with anyway. But the other point that I'm making is it's not that I would just like to see the different sources or the different options for funding the water in Kingaroy, because I do think that there are a lot of other things that need to be looked at across the region to keep communities happy, and whether that be roads as well. But I'd like to look at the other options for funding that rather than, because I do know, and I don't like to harp on this, well, I don't mind harping on it, but you know, the money that was spent already in Kingaroy on your Kingaroy project, maybe you should have thought of the water when you were doing that.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Acting General Manager, then we'll go to councillor Shoemaker.
Through you, Mayor, just to provide a bit of clarity. Absolutely correct, councillor, as regards the aesthetic taste of the water. This is why the long-term goal of council is to move, and that's largely because we use a 70-30% blend of Gordon Brook water. Gordon Brook, as a sole source water, is largely the also contributing factor to the aesthetics. So that's why our long-term plan is to actually move away, get more increased allocation off the Betterment pipeline, then moved to use Gordon Brook as a irrigation dam in the future. So therefore, and we'd have an emergency backup supply off that at the extreme, but other than that, it's to move wholly and solely to Betterment water. And further to that, that's the proposal for in the future for Nanango is that water is fine. It would taste no different to the water that it is at Bunduma Dam when you're at the caravan park there. That's the water quality there.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, just as a point of clarification, and Councillor Oaklands wasn't here at the time, the water and sewage infrastructure under the central business district had totally collapsed. We had main breaks and major main breaks on a regular basis. The KTP funding replaced partly the water asset infrastructure funding that was used for water only and wastewater only, and so it was thought about at the time, and all that infrastructure has been renewed. So you're talking about different asset classes, and that asset class was actually used to replace that asset class.
I do understand that there were issues in Kingaroy. I fully support that was done, but I also know that when you guys first started talking about it, it was something like, correct me if I'm wrong, $8 million, $4 million was funded and $4 million was going in from Kingaroy, but there's a lot more money gone into that project now.
Again, this is a different discussion and we don't have the whole day, but would love to. The road network depreciation money that was in Glendon Street when we dug it up the other day had water inundation under and had 60 mil of pavement left underneath the seal. These roads were going to get done in any which case, so whether they all got done together or they spread over a period of time, which is a much broader, the assets were failing. And they were failing because they hadn't had a lot of attention placed to them. Alfred Street hadn't been resealed or dug up like that since 1960. It was a significant period of time. Love to sit down and talk to you about it because there's a whole range of asset classes, but particularly today with regard to water, your comment about it should have been considered at the time it was, and the water infrastructure money was used to replace essential water asset infrastructure under the ground because in a highly technical mark term, the water infrastructure under the ground was buggered.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, a couple of things I'd certainly like to raise. Currently, the population of Kingaroy is 10,500 people. This project actually is also to the benefit of the Nanango population into the future if we're able to secure enough water allocation from Bundoomba Dam. The forward plan for Nanango is to connect that population of 3,599 people, if I'm correct, to the Kingaroy Town Water Treatment Plant facility.
Just acting general manager, yeah, we'll be looking more so at getting water from Boondooma straight across up to a treatment plant based in the Nanango. Could you just clarify that? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. So originally, you're partially correct, Councillor. Originally, that was the intent, but once we did the studies, the water age proved too difficult to overcome. So that's why we had to go. The alternate route was to come off near Toorong and back to Nanango to have its own treatment plant.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I guess my thinking is when it comes to, I know we've talked about intergenerational borrowings, the reality is this is actually a current generational borrowing, and the current generation are making up for the failings in the system from the previous generation, and I don't think it's fair, I don't think it's feasible to actually consider 7 and 8% increases year on year for the next 10 years. That would be 80%. If we chose not to do this, that would be potentially an 80% increase on everyone's water rates. And I think we should be doing what we can to minimise that and to use the funding that we get, the grant funding we get, frugally. I also just wanted to point out of the $5.63 million that we've gotten here to allocate, $3.63 million is actually being allocated to open spaces and community infrastructure. So I think it's important to note that we are trying to find a balance here. And I think there are some significant parks projects here that I'm very excited about. The QE2 Park, for instance, I think is a wonderful project after the significant amount of work that was done in Mergen to upgrade its footpaths for its community. I think water is a core, key function of council, and that at the moment we cannot accept there are people in my division in Kingaroy that frequently have dirty water coming out of their taps. I've got a photograph here which I'm happy to show you of somebody who went to pour their child a bath in the morning and it's brown. Now, I know that would have been because there was an ad hoc problem at that point in time in the network. There'd be many reasons why that would happen, but that does happen quite a bit. And the reality that we're draining our town water supply every single night, I just can't accept that. I would love to spend the entire $5.63 million on our parks. I've got a young family. I know how important livability is, but water infrastructure must be a priority for this council, the next council, and the council after that. And I do believe we must do what we can to limit the impact on our ratepayers, because there are some significant deficits in the network that we're trying to make up for today.
Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I again can't work out why everyone's against the borrowings. I can't believe that it would be 80% increase to borrow the $2 million and pay the interest on it, rather than actually have it as a grant, an 80% increase on it and water charges. And then the other thing is that there are so many projects. Like, for example, yesterday we met with the managers at BP Dam, and they're taking out some trees, and they desperately need to get some carports at the cabin area. That project is just, it'll be just completely, there's not going to be 1 cent of money anywhere to do even just that upgrade at BP Dam that we talked about, and that was a priority, but there was like so many issues out there at BP Dam with drainage, and the councillors who were there would have seen the issues, and we would not now, because if this decision goes ahead, not one of those projects can be done. I know that Manager Leanne in Facilities has got so many projects that could be opened up if we could use this Works for Queensland money to upgrade, a lot of the facilities just to repair what's currently happening. Like, we're just going to drop so far behind with all of those smaller projects that could benefit the whole region, rather than take the bucket of money into one single project when we could borrow.
Okay. Councillor Shoemaker, then we'll go to Councillor Henson.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, in terms of that statement, not one project done, I think this demonstrates there'll be a number of projects done. And last year with the COVID Works for Queensland funding, we expended, I just wanted to confirm how much of that last year's Works for Queensland allocation we expended in parks and gardens and open spaces and community infrastructure. Like that all took precedence with the last program that we put together. And I'd really like some clarity around that, General Manager O'May. And in terms of that not one project getting done, I think our team has demonstrated that we've now got a grants officer that we're actively recruiting for. There are a number of grants. I've been really impressed with the fact that we, attracted a grant for a new boat ramp at BP Dam. It was disappointing that the dam filled and we won't be able to build the boat ramp now. There are funding opportunities for smaller projects. The Queen's Jubilee, opportunities to buy trees, these littler projects. There are funding opportunities out there. And I think we've got to get hungrier in seeking them. I really do. But to be honest, I think we've got a long list of projects for every area. And I think those dams, yes, I absolutely agree, they have to be a priority. We need to develop a master plan. I don't think we could just pick a number out of the ground, out of our hats, because we haven't actually done any work on scoping up a project there. I wouldn't be comfortable in just plucking a figure out and saying, well, go spend this on the dam without a strategy and a plan behind it. And I think this council, we've had plenty of discussions about how we've got to get better at that, better scoping, better project planning and management, get a pipeline of projects ready, and then keep pushing them through. Whatever grant and funding opportunity there is, we're pushing them through. I don't think it's definitive that that project or any other project we've got on the list here won't ever happen. I absolutely believe they will, because I think we'll work hard, as we always do, and there'll be forward capital works programs, just like the ones we're laying down today, where we can start to bring these things forward and thread them through. But yes, you're right in the sense that Rome wasn't built in a day, and we can't have it all at once. We're going to have to be patient and keep chipping away and working at it. And I would like to confirm through General Manager O'May how much we actually spent through that last rounds of Works for Queensland and COVID funding on open spaces, parks and community facilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You threw me. Yeah, I just need a bit of time to go and pull those figures together. It was a $3 million project, but just a split between there was open space and facilities and that. So we just need to drill into a few reports.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Erkins and then back to Councillor Henson.
When you talk about grants, surely there are grants available for water security in towns. I would think that would be a pretty,
Okay, thank you. Building our regions is probably the only one we've got at the moment, I think, a state-funded program. We have got an application in, but we haven't heard back for $2 million. Yeah, waiting to hear on that. So there is one, but the federal government don't fund it. It's only a state program. But yeah, that's one option. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Yes, we talked about this $2 million some time ago and fully supported by Councillor Shoemaker. If we don't have water, we don't have anything. You won't have any parks and gardens. And with that security out at Warrulan there, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some work, regardless of work, has to happen there. In the roof section on the one. We went to Mergen on Wednesday, saw an absolutely wonderful facility down there. Imagine where they'd have been if that wasn't accomplished down there for them. And then in relation to BP Dam, yeah, we walked around there, another one of the region's fantastic assets, but the headlines on our agenda there rode short-term and long-term goals there for that. And as Councillor Shoemaker said, pretty sure not just this council, but the ones before and the ones after us will work hard to make sure that things that are on these lists we try and tick them off as we go, but there's priorities, and I think certainly that $2 million that is earmarked there for water, happy to work with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Jones, then I wouldn't mind having a little bit of a say if that's okay. But anyway, go ahead, Councillor
Yeah, no,
Jones.
just
I can
quickly,
see this is going to be 3-3, so I'm going to have to think carefully about this. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just in response to some comments made around the dams and all that, and the projects out there not getting done, are we not, as a council, discussing and talking about making the dams a separate business unit, and any profits and everything that's made out there will be reinvested into the facility? Is that, or am I reading it wrong? Is that what?
Oh, no, yes. That is in our corporate plan, and our operational plan will reflect that council is giving consideration to the commercialisation of some assets under which they would then operate as separate entities. That is correct, yeah. So it would certainly provide opportunities there. Okay. I suppose I'm feeling for the staff at the moment because they're watching us go around in circles on this, and we have done for several months, probably for 12 months. I'm keen to see us bed down the $5.63 million so that the staff can go away and start doing the project planning and design work. 3 years has now become 2, and there's a lot of work to be done with challenges in terms of capacity to deliver on works, in terms of contractors. So I don't think we should probably sit on our hands on this one too much. And in that vein, if we look at the spreadsheet that's on the screen here, and I'm listening to everyone discuss it, but when it all boils down, if I put my accountant's hat on, we've got to balance the budget here, team, to $5.63 million. So if we leave the $2 million in water in, I suppose the next question, just facilitating an outcome here, is we're $555,000 over now. Let's scroll down further, Craig. So that means that if we've got some proposals that I've put forward, Cumbia Apex Park redevelopment, Kingaroy Apex Park, Kingaroy Footpath Extension and Testmans Road, Nanango Tipperary Park, Warrulan Skate Park, Wandai Coronation Park, the community have come forward with that, Wandai McKell Park, Ceiling, Geelong, tennis courts and camping ground, BP Dam and Tingura grounds redevelopment. The community down there are obviously wanting something done there. Now, they're just things that would obviously are other things that I've heard back from the community that they would like to see us consider. But if we scroll back up, and even if we don't do any of those, with what the staff have brought forward, we are 555,000 oversubscribed. So I suppose my question to, as a group, to councillors is, which projects would we be giving guidance to the staff on we're going to take out to balance the budget? Because we do need to balance the budget. So can we identify which projects you'd like to take out? If we leave the water in, and this will inform my decision as to which way I'm going to vote, which projects, if we leave the water in, will we then take out? So will all those purple ones go? And will some of the ones in black also go? And which ones will they be? Because we're here today to make a recommendation up on this. So workshops have been had. We've talked this round and round. Staff have sit here patiently listening to us. It's come to the crunch, team, where we've got to make a call on this. So let's work through it line by line and pull out 555,000 of projects right now if we're going to make that budget balance. Otherwise, I can't see how we can commit to the $2 million without understanding both sides of the ledger. So can we do that? Can we go back to the top, Craig? Let's work through from the top right down, and I'd like you to consider the purple ones that I've put forward, because I've only put those forward because people of Tingura, people of Geelong, people of Nanango have approached me in relation to these. People in my division and Division 4, we don't get much up in my division, let me tell you.
No.
We'd like a car park at Apex Park because the elderly people are having to park downstairs and walk up a set of steps. The pedestrians can't get up there. And when we have a birthday party, we've got to park on the side of a hill on the grass and basically carry eskies down a sliding wet hill to get into a park area. So, I'm bringing this back on behalf of my division as well, or where I live as a resident, as well as the people of the region. But I just want to know, what are we going to take out? I don't mind. I just want to know from the team, what are we going to take out? So, Craig, can we go to the top and work our way through, please, because GMO needs us to balance it. So let's start at the top. Cumbia CBD, in or out?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I do have a suggestion. With the water infrastructure upgrades, I wanted to confirm with Manager Lowe. It was my understanding that you may not need the entire $2 million.
Through you, excuse me. Through you, Mayor. I am hoping that significantly no. So as I said at our workshop, the verbal indications are. Is this?
Yeah. 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 Look, I would like to propose that we amend the Kingaroy water security trunk infrastructure from 2 million to 1.5 million, because we've identified that we do have some restricted cash there. If there was a shortfall, we could make that up and still fund emergency works if that were to happen in the next 12 months. So I would like to propose that we continue with the project, but we nominate 1.5 million instead of the 2, which would actually cover the $500,000 increase in the projects that have been identified as above. That's what I would like to put forward for consideration, because I agree, Mr. Mayor, I think all of the projects there on the list are equally as important as each other. I certainly agree with the list of projects you'd put in the purple. I've had them on Works for Queensland lists for my division, which you're right, very little gets actually spent in Division 4. And I've had many of those on my list for some time now. I would absolutely love to see them funded. But I guess I just understand at this point in time we're going to have to go for grants and look for other opportunities. But at this point in time, yes, I'd like to move that we adjust that from 2 million to 1.5, which would make up the shortfall. There'd be a $5,000 shortfall there, which perhaps we'll just have to pull off a project that's been fund.
Yep, thank you, Councillor. So can I have a chance to talk now, please, councillors, because I've sat quiet and I've been very patient. Look, can we go back to the top, and we'll take that into consideration when we get to the blue line. But if we assume that we're going to take that to 1.5, let's work through the list. Okay, Cumbia CBD, in or out? Okay, Wandai CBD, 700,000, in or out? Okay, Mergen, regional upgrades to the whatever that is, PCYC, 560,000, in or out? Okay. Across the region, OPEX maintenance, 200,000. Okay.
Excuse me,
right.
Mr. Mayor.
Next line, another 200,000 for OPEX maintenance. Is that in? Can I just have the floor here, please, General Manager May? Is that in? Okay. Monjor Hall has been resolved. Aerodrome fencing at Kingaroy, 370. That's been resolved, I believe. The extra 40. QE2 Park in 300. Okay. Railway Park Proston in at 50. Kingaroy Park amenities upgrade 680 in. Okay. Wandai Park amenities upgrades 100 in. Public amenities upgrades in for 100. And Banarkan Park renewal in for 140. And the 24-hour camping regional parks, 150. Are they all in? In at this stage? Okay. Let's keep going then, Craig, down to the purple list. So, Cumbia Apex Park, in or out? Because, councillors, we can't have our cake and eat it. So, Councillor Henshin, Cumbia Apex Park out. Okay. Kingaroy Apex Park car park. Well, I'm just asking you the question. Where are your priorities here, Council? In or out? Kingaroy Footpath, Nanango Tipperary Park. Work through the list. We need to tell the staff what's in and what's out. And we need to get this resolved today. So it's a decision for Council to make.
I'm probably confused by what solution you're putting forward, Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
all I want is for my councillors to tell me, tell us, the staff, what do you want in and what do you want out? Because we've got to balance that $5.63 million. So are we saying that we'll bring back the water to 1.45, leave everything else as it is, and take out everything that's in purple, and provide no opportunity for anything else to come forward? Is that what we're saying? I just want that clarified.
Well, I just want to clarify, so all of the projects that are approved by council resolution, are you suggesting that we can now change those?
Not at all.
So-
Anything that's in yellow has been
so-
approved, Peter, is that correct?
Yes.
So anything that's been adopted by resolution cannot be changed because the work has started. But anything that hasn't been adopted by resolution, we've got to make a decision today. Is it in, well, not a decision, but we've got to make a recommendation up today. Is it in or out?
Well, the only project that's not got a council resolution is that Wandai CBD roundabout or the Butter Factory public amenities projects. So are they the only projects that you're suggesting we reallocate to the purple list?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, so sorry. So
Yeah,
let me
sorry, I'm
start
just
again.
really
Yeah, let me start again.
confused.
Sorry. So, okay, yep, to be clear, Wandai CBD, we're saying that'll be in. The next one that hasn't been resolved is OPEX maintenance 70,000, that's gone. Okay. So that's 70,000's gone. Yep, I'm with you here. Okay, 200,000 for OPEX maintenance, Pete.
Yeah, through you,
That's
Mr. Mayor,
there.
the ones with the cross are still in the program. The 70,000 is still in there. The ones
So
with
they're
the-
still adding up to the total?
They're still adding up to the total. I just had the cross there was just probably more an indication that giving you giving additional maintenance, that could be one that could be reallocated. So the ones with the lines through are still actually in the total figures.
Okay.
Apologies for the confusion. That's what I was trying to advise. Yeah.
So if we take out the 70, Craig, on across the region, that one, take out the Mergen Dog Park, take out the Mergen Half Sports, half court. Where does that leave us? Can you just top a zero in there or something, Craig? Will it let you edit that field? Yep. Yeah, thank you.
And with your conversation, Mayor, around the bottom ones in the purple that you've put forward, we've heard that everybody's got a number of programs that they'd add to that list as well. So we'd rather, just dealing with those, there's other issues right across the region that...
Oh, I did make note of that. I did say that the ones in purple plus whatever other councillors still have forward from their community, but I'm just wanting to be clear that that we understand what we aren't going to allow, what we are going to dismiss, which will include this, and I'm sure there are many other projects that we would potentially include.
Can I just ask the question while we're waiting? What across the region, OPEX maintenance by 2 for 200,000? Why are we doubling up on that? What's the reasons for the 200? That's 400,000 in operational maintenance.
Many, Gillian? Thank
So, councillors, in the OPEX, we actually removed $200,000 from the OPEX maintenance bucket with the suggestion that you would fund your maintenance from Works for Queensland. If not, we'll have to go back to the OPEX budget and reallocate 200,000 into the operations, because we've taken that out to try to help save some operating costs.
So you've taken 200 out of your OPEX budget, hopefully getting funded here, and then you've asked for another 200 on top of that.
Councillors, yes, so what you would see in the red there, so for next financial year, it would be a total of 300,000. So this year, you already gave us $100,000 in the OPEX, and you took that also out of our OPEX maintenance. We also allocated that again, that same scenario again this year, plus we're suggesting 200,000. So you're actually in total reducing the OPEX for next financial year by 300,000. Now, if you're not going to allocate it here, then we would have to put it back in the OPEX budget, because that there would be, servicing air conditioning units, doing all of our minor maintenance that we do.
Okay. Councillor Erkins.
When you're talking about taking stuff out, I wouldn't be happy with taking anything out of the Butter Factory Park, because the community actually put $80,000 towards that. So to take out of there, I think is pretty mean.
So, Craig, we'll go to you now.
Yeah.
Where are we sitting in terms of balancing this budget?
So, Mr Mayor, if you take off these three projects, which is a regional repainting program for Nanango Energy Centre, the dog park, and the installation of a ball sports half court, and reduce the water security trunk infrastructure upgrade by $500,000, that will provide 115 left still to be allocated.
Okay. Councillor Schumacher.
I personally, Mr Mayor, if that's the case, would like to see that nominated toward that Cumbia Apex Park. I think it's been a very long time since we've actually spent any money on the park in Cumbia. And it is very broken. It's got broken playground equipment. It's got timber sleepers that are full of splinters. It's got no sealed car park. Be good to, and its amenities are terrible. Would be good to make a start on that project.
Councillor Erkins.
Shifting the overnight vans,
Uh,
camping from there, wasn't there more?
yeah, no, that's not to there, councillor. That's to another location. Yeah, that's a separate issue, that one.
But isn't that the same park? Why would you spend money on that park? Why
no.
wouldn't you do the...
If I can just clarify, if I can clarify, councillors, please. This is to take away the overnight parking from there and turn it into more of a community playground for families to utilise, and then look at other options for the caravan parking. Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
Councillor Jones.
And just for the new councillors' information, that keeping in mind that we've allocated money and we're doing up the main street of Cumbia, so this would just finish it off and really that'd work in together. But I don't disagree. But like the mayor said, the Apex Park up here at Kingaroy, the Tipperary Flat, where do you go? They're all valid, good projects, but again, it just comes down to where you want to go across the region. And like the councillor said, Cumbia has been waiting for a long time, and I think that Cumbia Apex Park upgrade would just coincide with the upgrade of the main street. It'd work in well, but like there's a whole list there, and we could all add millions of dollars worth of projects to that purple list down the bottom, but we haven't got the funding. But yeah, no, I'm not against it, but that would certainly work in well with the proposed upgrade to the CBD of Cumbia.
Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor and other councillors. And I guess with the bottom in the purple open space refurbishments, you would like to think that they go up the ladder for the next run, so to speak. Like and this is what happens where council gets put in these positions, of course, and that list, and we all have multiple items we could list onto that as well, but it's just a work in progress. And I mean, fully appreciate and support the Cumbia Apex Park. We've got to juggle monies around within our budget allocation and what we do. And yes, appreciate the fact that Cumbia is getting its very first little bit of development there since I don't know when, and certainly Apex Park. And in my initial suggestion to take it off, it was in the sense to try and save $150,000, but to be able to juggle those figures around as we have done, and to have $115,000 and to put Apex Park with the development of that streetscape there. And yes, there's talk of the caravans going down in a park. That's a completely separate project, which would come back on the next list of needs, wants, and requirements.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just think it's so now we started out with an argument about 2 million and talking about the actual that it was going to cost so much more if we borrowed to 2 million, 80%, and now we've just dropped it back to 1.5 all of a sudden, which changes the whole scenario back to what it would cost at the end result, and you're cutting out all these projects that could benefit right across our whole region, and you're just picking one out when we haven't looked at all of the projects that. And I just think this is wrong. The whole process is wrong, and I'm just going to vote against the whole concept of just dropping it back to 1.5 and then just picking a project out that because it happens to be one that everybody, without us putting forward our other projects.
Councillor, in light of that, would you have a proposal to a process moving forward then for this? Because we do need to get it resolved for our staff. And we do have to adopt the budget on the 8th of July. So what would you suggest that we do?
I want to borrow the money and then use the additional 1.5 or whatever is left to do these projects across our region to benefit all of the communities, not just use the money for Works for Queensland. For the water, I want to borrow it. So I've just got a totally different view to obviously the majority in the chamber.
Okay. Councillor Shoemaker, then we'll look to get this wrapped up shortly.
Yes, I just wanted to respond, Councillor, to the comments. Don't get me wrong, just taking $500,000 off water infrastructure is not something that I would like to do. However, I was trying to find a balance and trying to work with the team here to come to some consensus where we can share the funds across the region. I'm not committed to take the borrowings because we've got $33 million worth of borrowings right now, today, in this moment, $33 million worth of borrowings. We have to increase that at some point in time, and there's a big question mark. Heaven pray that we don't have to spend the amount of money that we will on Gordon Brook Dam AFC upgrades, but that we don't know. So by all means, I just wanted to clarify, it's not like it was just chop out 500,000. We were overspent by 500,000, and to be honest, did not have the heart to tell any of the projects on this list. I could not go to the Wandai community after we've talked about that roundabout till we're blue in the face and tell them that we're not going to do it, or to your Mergen community and say we're only going to half finish QE2 Park, and I'm just not prepared to do that. I think this is a fair and reasonable way to try to balance the funds, and what we're trying to do as a team is come to a compromise. It disappoints me that you can't see an opportunity to work together and try to compromise on all of these high priority needs.
Right. Okay, who'd like to have my job? Councillors, as the finance portfolio holder. Look, are we ready to go to the vote on this? We've got it'll need to be as amended, won't it, Mr. CEO? 6.7.
Yeah,
Mr. CEO.
So if we go back to 6.7, so I half penciled that Councillor Shoemaker before was moving something.
Yes.
So, yeah, so if that would be, if you got him up there, councillors, so the Southfield endorse the following projects, blah, 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 as amended, as per the amended sheet. Is this what so am I in the right motion, Mayor?
I think you are, Mr. CEO.
As amended.
As per the amended.
Yep. Mayor, what we might do is actually I might attach the sheet to the minutes. So then if we've missed something or got this wrong, and given that there may be a divergence of views, someone can pick it up, but because many eyes make light work. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. CEO. Okay, so we have the motion there. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder, Councillor Potter. Speakers, Councillor Shoemaker first. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just with the as amended sheet, I'd like to propose that we add the Cumbia as per the amended sheet and the discussion that we've had, Bree. I'd like to propose that we add on the Excel sheet that we nominate the remaining allocation of 115 in open space refurbishments to that Cumbia Apex Park. So there's only 115 there. Yep, open space. And the reason why I'm very passionate about that, whilst I completely understand the 100 years, the celebrations happening in Nanango. Last year, we spent a significant amount of our funding on our COVID and Works for Queensland funding, on upgrading the Butter Factory Park. We did make a significant contribution to support the community to finish that. Pioneer Park and Reg McCallum Park. I do feel that with the work that we've got proposed in Cumbia and the limited work that we actually did there last year, that it would be appropriate to escalate that project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further, okay, Councillor Potter, are you comfortable with that change?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Erkins.
I am pretty disillusioned in the motion, especially to mention the Butter Factory Park, which $80,000 was raised by the community to contribute to the Butter Factory Park. Nanango celebrates 175 years. So you're telling me that Tipperary Flat, that absolutely disgusting wreck, is going to be the thing? There's $15,000 going to be spent on that for our 100, and that's the introduction to our town for 175 years. I find that insulting, and I'm pretty sure my community will feel the same way.
Councillor Duff.
So I 100% agree with what Councillor Erkins is saying. By taking this money, this money for water, all of those projects like the Tipperary Flat one and like lots of little projects right across our region, including Geelong, and all those people that have some hope that we are going to deliver on some of that stuff, community plans and all of that, is going out the window just because of the mechanics of the way we're spending this money. It's money that we could borrow. It's money. These little projects are going to be hard, really hard to do. Well, we're not going to be able to do them. We just have to tell our community that they're all scrapped, including, as Councillor Erkin said, the Tipperary Flat one. It's just, it's not a pretty sight. And when you come into Nanango, and they're celebrating their 175 years. So I'm just really disappointed in this whole process.
Okay, further speakers before we go to Councillor Shoemaker to wrap up? Okay, no, look, I'll have one say. Then we'll go to Councillor Shoemaker for a reply. I'm not going to support this either. I have thought it through carefully. I think we can afford to borrow the 1.5 million. I know we've got 33 million at the moment. Kerry indicated the other day we're paying that down at over $4 million per year. I'm not someone that loves debt, that likes a lot of debt, but I would like to see what else is in the Capital Works program for water moving forward. That could perhaps be reallocated out, or we consider borrowings. And because I am concerned that we won't be able to raise the money for these projects, I gave a commitment to the people of Geelong that I would bring forward their project. I gave commitment to the people of Tipperary Flat that I would bring forward their project. I gave a commitment to the police in Mergen that I would encourage Councillor Duff to bring that project forward for the Indigenous youth down there who came forward as a group of children and asked for their half court. So for that reason, I suppose I will be disappointed to see us lose those projects now in the short term at least. This will take us through to 2024. We'll see out our term of council, and I suppose for me, there are things I would have liked to have seen us to deliver on for the community before we finish our term. So that's my reasoning anyway. But anyway, nonetheless, we'll go to Councillor Shoemaker to wrap up, and then we'll go to the vote. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's certainly been a really difficult and challenging conversation, and I don't think any person takes these decisions, any person in this chamber takes these decisions lightly. It's a real challenge for our council to deliver and fix the so many broken things in our community and try to provide a good result across the region. I don't disagree. I think there is significant work there that needs to be done on Tipperary Flat, and we've had discussions about that in this council chamber. We've had discussions about trying to do some of the planning work to really understand what the challenges will be and to finish that project properly. I know it's been a number of years since anything has been done there, but I do know that we've also done a lot of work in the other parks in Nanango, and I guess I'm just thinking about the people of Cumbia and the challenge they've got with the park they've got there at the moment. I know there's many young children. It's the only park in Cumbia community, and we've done very little with our COVID funding in the past. I would like to confirm for the chamber that these changes mean that we will actually be spending $4,130,000 on open spaces and parklands and community-based projects, which I think is a wonderful outcome. And we are going to save our community having to borrow money now today. We're going to save our community from restricting and pulling down its cash reserves to a point where it couldn't actually afford to cover the cost of any emergent works. And I think that's a responsible decision. So I commend this motion to the chamber.
Go to the vote. Those in favour, Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Jones, Councillor Potter and Henson. Those against, Councillor Erkins, Duff and Otto. That has been carried, 4 votes to 3. Thank you all. Okay, now, right, well, Mr. CEO, I think we pretty well dealt with 7.1, but shall we now move on to 6.5, ICT Proposed CapEx Program? I know we've got our manager here. Thank you.
With the leave of the meeting, 7.1 is for information. It has been pretty much dealt with, so could we just really belt it through and just receive the information?
Yeah, sure, Mr. CEO. So recommendation is that the response to the questions regarding W4Q allocation for water and its effect on the future management raised by Councillor Shoemaker be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO. 6.5, ICT Proposed CapEx Program 22-23. Welcome through you, General Manager Jarvis, to our Manager of ICT. Welcome, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The ICT capital budget was presented by the Manager of ICT recently. There haven't been any changes to the actual presentation last time. So this is virtually just bringing it to the budget meeting for discussion if there was any inquiries in that. But as you alluded to, that most of these are essential. They're just, there's no surprises there. There's no additions. This is just replacement of our capital.
Thank you, General Manager. Anything further to add, Manager?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't.
Good. Thank you. You gave us a very good briefing the other day. Thank you for that. So we have the recommendation there. Get the right page here. That the committee receive the proposed 22-23 draft budget for the ICT CapEx program and provide guidance for inclusion in the continued preparation of the full South Burnett Regional Council 22-23 annual budget as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Manager. Wish they were all as easy as yours, hey? Okay, let's go on to, thank you. Let's go on to your next area of responsibility, Manager, which is, might not be as easy, but 6.6, proposed Fleet 22-23 CapEx program at page 19. Okay, can we get that one up on the screen? Thank you. Finance. Okay, I think we're still in the meeting, everybody, so we'll just wait till we get this up on the screen. Okay, so thank you very much. So we have hard copies in front of us here, just while Finance get that one up. Right, so Manager, through you, if we could work us through that, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
So through you, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to just lead in before the manager takes over to explain the handouts. Our apologies, we've had some problems with the photocopier, hence you didn't get these reports sooner. But you'll see in front of you there is the actual replacement budget on one of the A3 there, that the proposed replacement budget as per the fleet review as far as time, years and also mileage. You'll also see an additional sheet there for your white plant and fleet that you requested more information about who the drivers were or which departments there. So that's an additional bit of information that's separate to the capital. And then you'll also find another one there that is a low risk suggestions that Anthony and Brandon have gone through in consultation with our Plant and Fleet Committee to say that if council were looking to maybe address the wish list that has been requested by councillors and that through the year, these items may be able to be left for another 12 months. I think they ranged about $500,000 there. So that we could include some of these additional plant that council has requested. Some have had business cases, some of them haven't, so just be aware of that. So that's just a bit of a summary of what you want. The low risk items there, for example, that we could hold back another 12 months is, for example, the 2 tipping dog trailers there for $130,000 each. Brandon and Anthony have assessed them to say they're low risk, they have no motors or anything, so to hold them back an additional 12 months is at no risk for breakdowns or no risk to our operators there. So I'll hand over to Anthony now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, so councillors, what you see there in front of you is basically the 3.69 million is the actual replacement, proposed replacement of the actual plant and fleet actual budget this year. There is an available funding source, we understand, if you scroll down there, please, a little bit, Craig, of 5.3. So the actual items that are due for replacement do not consume the full value of that 3.3. But if we flick over to the fleet, so the wish list, is it on that one, mate? White replacement thing. Yep, that one there. You see there's 2.8 million worth of suggested actual wish list, so to speak. So in that space there, as General Manager Jarvis there actually alluded to, that we have had a few actual requests come through from that, but we understand the complications around that is when we acquire a piece of plant, it obviously needs a crew to operate that actual piece of equipment. And some of these actual items that have come through, I'm not sure at this point if business cases have been received or if that's been fully scoped at this point to actually run that. So the particular ones in question there is the large patching truck, small, pretty much the top list. So the large patching truck, the small patching truck, the tractor slash and roadside slashing, and the three rollers patrol crews. When we talk about the hook lift trucks as well, is that the other one? Sorry, yep. And the 3 trailers and the mini, which one do you point to, and the street scrubber as well there too. So obviously there's capacity within budget to obviously accommodate that, but without the actual crews to operate it, that will be a bit of a challenge. And we move into what's the thing we had to look at? That's what it says.
Yeah.
That's about the extent, isn't it? So I suppose we come back to council basically wanting probably a bit more discussion or further direction, I suppose, in relation to the submitted wish lists, and if we have actual crews to operate it, because that'll obviously cause some concerns and problems. So if that needs further discussion or input from management, I understand, but we're probably looking for a little bit of direction from council, what their thoughts are, and the next steps for us to undertake that.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. So, Councillor, we have the list in front of us. Let's put some questions forward and have a general discussion. Councillor Erkins.
On the rollers for the patrol crews, I went on the internet and looked up. You can get rollers that go behind the graders, and I think I spoke to Councillor Jones about that. Is there? And then you wouldn't have to have another. You wouldn't have to have a driver, an operator for it.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have had that discussion before about the rollers behind graders. There are some issues as transportation. They actually won't fit on any standard float, so they would have to be split each time and moved separately if they were to be floated between job sites. They obviously are a substitute, so they're not as heavy as an actual roller. So depending on the level of the compaction that you're after, whether it would be efficient enough. And also they do extend the length of the grader quite a lot. So turning around tight roads, depending on where they are, they become an issue with limited space. We have tried to hire some in the past, and we actually couldn't get them to try, but they have been brought up previously.
So when you say they're not as heavy, they're obviously a lot better than what you're doing now because you're not using a roller for that patrol grading, are you?
No, there's no rollers generally with the patrol grader crews. Yeah.
So if they weren't heavy, it would be a better job but than what's being done now.
Yes.
And for the transportation, so it would be a matter of whether the cost of transportation versus the cost of operators.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a suggestion? Because this came up at the workshop and I made some inquiries so as well. So if council, when we talk about operational plan, my strong advice to council is we're not in a position for this next 12 months to leap into 3 new rollers. But if council is actually of a mind for those maintenance grade to put a roller on those roads, get my words out, getting too late in the day. The discussions, probably even before my time here, were about whether if you had a roller, you'd have two maintenance crews rather than 3. And so there was a whole raft of discussion. So it would be my recommendation and suggestion that we tag that one for the op review and do a proper business case and bring back and say, because it would involve then, if we're looking, if this is the extra cost, this is the extra service level, will you get an extra life out of the road? But also, do we then have, instead of 3 grades, 3 sections, we have 2 districts, whatever terminology you want to use for it, and then that can come back as its own piece of work and it'll give plenty of time and prep for the next year. But cost and gearing up, I just hate to spend this amount of money and then we'll be like some of the other programs over all levels of government, as we're just not in a position to implement it after we've spent all the money or not do it properly.
Can I just ask, what if you do roll them, how much better a job will those how much longer will those roads hold up for?
Acting General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. That's largely a piece of string question, Councillor. If it's dry grading, not much extension at all because you've got no moisture there for the compaction. If it's straight after wet weather, yeah, it will probably significantly increase it for a while. But as pointed out, the vehicle length increase does have its own problems. By way of history, I used to do that sort of thing many years ago, and yeah, so it limits your turnaround times, particularly on long narrow tracks. You've basically got to go right through. You could go a couple of kilometres through and then a couple of kilometres back. So it does limit your ability to resolve drainage issues while you're there as well, because your manoeuvrability is largely decreased.
So do they swap them for the diggers? Don't they have the tines on the back of the rippers? Yeah. So do they take them off and put them on? And how don't we water the roads when we're grading them?
Through you, Mayor. No. So if you're doing patrol grade, generally speaking, no, it's a patrol grader only. It's when you're doing your heavy formation grading that you'll have grader water roller, and so that's where the roads are. I think there's a priority in the region's roads. So you've got your higher order gravel roads, and then resheets, and then maintenance ones.
So when we dry grade, do we dry grade to improve the road, or do we dry grade just to tell people they've had their roads graded?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah. So for the reason for any grading is basically by vehicular traffic, you're getting the throw off your rocks and your fines off to the side of the road. So essentially, dry grade is just to bring them back up onto the road and hopefully compact them with what limited resource you got there with the grader wheels, etc. It'll pack down a little bit, but it's not a great fix, no.
I only ask because on our road that was dirt for many years, and before the change in councils, I know if you rang up to have the road graded, the councillor would always say, look, it's too dry for us to do it at the moment. As soon as it rains, you're on the thing. I just always thought that there was no point if you weren't putting any moisture in. But
Okay. General Manager Jarvis.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, probably to summarise it, what we're actually looking for today from Council is some direction with this list here that Brandon has provided. Really, to summarise it, if we held back 6 white plant and the 2 tipping dog trailers, that would give us the capacity. Will give us 512,500. Now, if you look at the and that's only pushing them back 12 months. So that would free up that capital, $500,000 in capital, there to look at the inverted commas, the wish list. Now, my team and I have been in contact with the manager of infrastructure, and as the CEO alluded to, these rollers and that are a separate issue because apparently they affect your service levels, and so that's a whole business case to look at. But in the interim, and also as Manager Anthony alluded to, your large patching truck and your small patching truck that were requests there of Councillor Duff, that requires additional teams to man them and that. So for the purpose of that, again, we would have to have a definite business case brought back because it will affect our operational budget. But if you look down there further there into communities there, this may be an option like you were discussing this morning about your waste truck there. There's a hook lift truck there for $345,000. That may free up, if that's council's wish. There's your $345,000 that would, service your Maidenwell transfer station and also have that extra truck because they're at high risk, like General Manager O'May was saying, they work 7 days a week, those other 2 trucks that we already have. So there's your 3rd truck. It may then free up the $10,000 there for your wide area mower from Parks that have already given us a business case on there. And it might even be that you have get your hook lift trailer there for the $105,000. But my proposition or my request to council is that to give us some indication that if that is your preference to be looking at those, that we actually go back, do a business case there and then come back with our final capital to council. So it's more just requesting some guidance, and they're just suggestions there for council to consider. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Duff, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just I'm in absolutely left field, but if it was me, I'd do a business case on the actual slashing as opposed to just having contractors do it, and then free up the slasher drivers and then purchase the large patching truck and the small patching truck and use those resources to actually the staff to actually do the potholes rather than the slashing and just use contractors. That's what I would be looking at, but that's just my thoughts.
Okay. General Manager's given us an option there. What are thoughts on that, Councillor Jones?
That is left field through you, Mayor, that last comment. We'll still have a budget to do the slashing, whether we use contractors or our own people. Yeah, we can use contractors and we'll loosen up a couple of staff. But anyway, getting back to, just in regards to Councillor Erkins, and backing up GM Low, with the roads, we have 3 levels of services, and the patrol grading is on very low traffic roads. So it may be down to 2 a week, sometimes 10 a day, but low traffic roads, that's where that patrol grading comes in. As I mentioned earlier this morning, with the budgets, if you want to whack 3 rollers in there for patrol grading, you better whack a fair bit of money in there into your budget to run it, because you can shake your head, Councillor, but how... Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So thank you very much. Thanks for shaking your head, Councillor. So, yeah, just in regards to that, but also the conversation around that truck. We've committed to moving ahead this morning with the Maidenwell transfer station, with the comments around there and our staff and the trucks that are running very tight schedules, no backup truck, the staff running 7 days a week. I think we can justify that. Also with the wide area mower, I think we've discussed that over a long period of time about the benefits and the time saving that's potentially there for the parks and garden staff. So I'd like to see that certainly be purchased, and I think we're still working along the street scrubber, vac trailer and ute and all that sort of stuff. So again, they to me, just looking at that list, that's the priorities that I see that can be justified through our system.
Okay, further speakers, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yeah, just and a good point, Councillor Erkins, in relation to the rollers, but I think we'll take note next Tuesday and Wednesday that it'd be an absolute impossibility to turn a grade around with the roller. I would think and suggest then that we would run into problems with horsepower with graders when they've got to tow something else, when they've been purchased for a purpose to grade roads and rip roads, and then hook a roller on the back. I think we could open a big can of worms, but appreciate what you're trying to say, Councillor Erkins. So as far as towing them along, and I would appreciate they would be a lot cheaper, but you'll see on Tuesday, Wednesday, it'd just be an impossibility to tow one to turn it around on a majority of our roads, unless we had turning pads and things like that. And as Councillor Jones has alluded to, the truck, hook lift truck and trailer, and yes, the wide area mower. Can I just ask, the street scrubber back and trailer, has it been hired yet? Have we got anything happening with that yet? Have we got any results back?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you.
Right, okay. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really would appreciate the opportunity to have a look at the business case and some of the work done as suggested around some of the plant that we've discussed here. I think there really could be, I'm really interested in what it would mean to add another loader to, a grader, add a roller to one of our grading crews for that maintenance grade, CEO Mark. I think I'd really like to understand with the water truck, what value that'd have if that would potentially extend the period. We'd have to actually go back. So, yeah, very interested in that. And the other thing, the only one that I would actually, depending on how councillors feel, but you know, pending the success of the trial, I'm actually really passionate about getting that street scrubber vac trailer ute actually organised now, because I've seen the business case, saw the demonstration, very impressed with the work. I'd just like to flag it that, you know, I think we should include that with the budget pending the successful trial, that we actually go ahead and buy that, because it could be some time before that plant actually arrives. And I know we've been receiving significant feedback around town around the way our streets currently are maintained. So that's probably the only piece of kit. I think the hook lift truck and trailer too, I'd like to see the business case just to make sure we're making an informed decision, but I think that has to be done. But yeah, certainly that street scrubber, I think the work that's been done on that has been excellent, and I'd like to propose that we actually add that to our plant budget for next year.
Hey, so we'll just pick up the $165,000 there for the scrubber vac trailer and ute. Craig, if we could, we can certainly present this as amended to include that. Okay, General Manager.
Mr Mayor, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, just for council's information too, not that I'm suggesting that we do burn cash, but we do have a reserve there in our restricted cash of 2.8 million for our plant and fleet as well, if that was the appetite for council to dip in there maybe to get that extra plant. But I'm just putting that out there for your information to say that funding is available.
Okay, thank you. Just there, fellas, the two sedans, wagons, $40,000 each. Can we get some more detail around the application of those vehicles? Thank you.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Craig, could you just go to the detailed breakdown, please? Yep. And down to the bottom of the infrastructure. So, sorry, up a little bit, 5495 should be the plant number there, Craig. Yep. So that line there is a wagon that is allocated into the infrastructure, water and wastewater manager position. So that is allocated to the manager and part of their package is from what I believe. So.
Okay, thank you. That's one. And is there another one, a sedan?
Yep, the sedan, Craig, please, to the bottom in finance and corporate. Uh, 5439. This sedan is based in the Mergen depot. It is a pool vehicle and it is utilised by all of Mergen depot and Mergen office. So I know there is for training purposes and for apprentices going to TAFE and is also used by the office for different training purposes and travelling to other areas.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, I'll probably just leave as a lead-in. I've got no issue with the capital budget as presented. Certainly very keen, if we can turn now to White Fleet, very keen to see that we continue to upgrade our White Fleet so we're not incurring major maintenance costs. But it does still concern me that of our 100 White Fleet, we have 67, I believe, being applied to commuter use. And I would certainly like to see, and I've been sort of talking about this quite a bit, I know, but I would like to see us have another look at that commuter use and also the capacity to be able to perhaps work smarter with our White Fleet as an organisation. Now, what I'm not proposing is that we take utilities off those men and women who are working in the roads or the parks and gardens or the water and wastewater networks. What I am proposing is to have a look at, do we have vehicles where there could be capacity to perhaps downsize our fleet without impacting on those services any further than we already have. So that's something I would like to see us explore moving forward in relation to our OPEX budget, particularly coming in coming weeks, Mr CEO, as a potential saving initiative. Yeah. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just with the plant replacement budget 22-23, it was remiss of me not to mention, I see the Parks and Gardens crew had actually put up the wide area mower as an option. It was $110,000. And I know we'd talked about how they can actually cover a lot more country with that mower, and for some particular areas of the region, that would be much more efficient. We've got there that we're going to buy 6 new mowers in our plant replacement fleet. I was actually thinking, I don't know how many or what the request was, but I was actually thinking out of those 6, should we actually consider, I'd really value your feedback, Brandon, having spoke to the operators, should we actually consider trying to add one of those wide area mowers to the fleet in that replacement program that you've suggested here?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. So just so I understand, it'd be to not replace some of those mowers and to use that funds there for the wide area?
Yes, instead of replacing the 6, if there were some mowers in that area where the guys actually said, we're mowing large areas of parkland, like Wandai's got an extraordinary amount of grass to mow, for me it would make more sense to buy a wide area mower, acknowledging that, it's $110,000 mower, so it's expensive, but the savings, I think, and the opportunity for the crew to go and mow other areas might be more beneficial. So I guess I'm just thinking in terms of your thoughts with those replacement 6 mowers, do you think there's merit in having a look at that, whether those 6 are actually fit for the job that we're putting them to, and if we should consider actually spending a little bit more and actually getting a couple of those wide area mowers? Because I recognise they're probably not right for every area. Some areas you actually need a smaller deck, but for those larger areas of grassland, I could see, we'd cover it much quicker. I'd welcome your feedback with that.
Absolutely. If we were working in conjunction with the managers and we can identify some mowers there in certain areas where instead of 2 or 3 mowers, they do mostly wide area usage, there shouldn't be an issue where we could put a few 2 or 3 back and purchase the wide area, but it would have to be through with the operational management of the department as well. We'd have to work in conjunction with them.
Yeah, do you think, I'm happy to support this budget, but I guess as a notation to this, that we would welcome those conversations with the operators and the management team, and if there was an opportunity to actually, improve our efficiency by buying those bigger mowers, except they may not actually be the right gear, but I'd just like to understand, if we are replacing so many, if there is an opportunity to improve our capability, I think we should explore it. It might be worth the actual more spend on the mower.
Also, just to point out, with our replacement process, we have justifications. So when those mowers would be ready to be replaced, justification process would happen, and that gets seen to by the supervisors, coordinators, managers, and so that time we can have those discussions about these are the fleet that have been identified due to age or usage kilometres, and what are their thoughts, what would better suit their operational needs.
Okay, so if we could, General Manager Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. There's been a lot of work done with Manager Mark Watt on lawn mowers there and fit for purpose. And this one, the extra one there, Councillor, for the $110 is the one that I believe the manager did put a business case in for the purchase of it. But he has looked at all these other ones, and I've personally had conversations with Manager Mark, and he said that he was happy with these replacement ones, that there was a lot of work done between he and Lee and Brandon there to actually get the ones that were fit for purpose. And like you said, not all of them, the bigger ones, that they don't fit in a lot of places, but I do know that he does want this one here. That's a wish on the wish list.
Okay. Craig, can we bring into the summary list then, if we can insert some rows there? Can we bring in? Can I propose? Can we bring into the summary list? There's off that additional requested plant. There is 2 items there: hook lift truck and hook lift trailer. From what we've heard today, I think they will swing off the decision to construct the transfer station at Maidenwell. I don't think we can do one without the other. Just listening to the discussions today. And further to that, the wide area mower, keeping in mind that this is just a recommendation for council to consider when we do resolve the budget ultimately, just so that we don't lose these items. 110,000 for the wide area mower, as General Manager Jarvis just spoke about there, and then listening to council, the street scrubber back trailer and ute for 165. If we can reassign those up into the main list. And then obviously we can give consideration to what happens with those trailers. I think we had a couple of those low-line trailers, didn't we? I think you mentioned tipping dog trailers. We had 2 of those at 130,000 each, as to whether that's something that council wanted to leave in. Yeah, so manager has indicated that perhaps we wouldn't need to necessarily replace those for another 12 months. So I guess my question is, do we want to leave them in, or do we want to take them out and push that back 12 months to help fund these other items? Okay, so we take them out. Was there a third item, Brandon, that we could have reconsidered, General Manager? Mower, was it? Oh, no, well, we wanted to consider leaving that in. The wide area mower, thank you, yeah. We can bring that one up to the main list for council to consider. Just put that up as a proposal. Is any further discussion in relation to that new proposed list? So, General Manager, that still brings us in under budget at 4.3, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way I account for it is the suggested ones that we take out were 512,500. I didn't use 500, but with the inclusion there of your hook lift truck for 345, your hook lift trailer for 105, your wide mower for 110, and this, did you add the street scrubber? Yeah, the street scrubber, 165. That adds up to 725 minus your 512. So we're 213,000 short. Yes, that's in the 512. We're 213, yeah, or 212,500. But like I said, we do have 2.8 million in restricted cash, but that's a decision of council.
Let's go back to the main sheet, Craig. Have we taken out the 2 dog trailers? They can come out number 12, thank you, yeah. Move it out. Okay. Was there anything else to consider moving out, General Manager, other than those 2 dog trailers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there should be 6 white fleet removed from there as well.
6 white fleet.
Yeah. That's to bring us up to 512,500.
Okay.
Yes, it should be six. Six at, there it is.
Six
Out
can
of that
come out.
20, yeah, 6 at 42, 500.
So bring that back to 14.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. So we'll go to the motion now, which is that, since I find it here, at this stage, I believe so, subject to further information. Yep. That's right. Yeah. Okay, so recommendation that the committee receive the proposed 22-23 draft budget for the Fleet CapEx program and provide guidance for inclusion in the continued preparation of the full South Burnett Regional Council 22-23 annual budget as amended. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Potter. Further speakers to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, next item on the agenda, committee, is, Mr CEO, the final item, 6.8 councillor salary increase from 1 July 2022 at page 25. Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep my comments very brief. The report's attached. The report is received for information as the tribunal sets the wages. We've inserted section 274 of the regulations that if there was a query if council wanted to do something different, that's the head of power to do something different. But other than that, if council has no decision point really except to resolve under subsection 2 that unless they resolve to take not the maximum amount. And so, Mayor, that's council's direction.
Okay, so we've got that report there. Let's have a chat about it. Councillor Duff, have you got your light on?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm going to vote against taking any increase at all, given the fact that we've I'm just flagging that, given the fact that we've cut the community back with a lot of stuff that they're not going to see. I think the last thing that we need to do is to take a pay rise. So I'm absolutely not going to support the pay rise. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Jones.
I'll do exactly the same, Mr Mayor. I don't want a pay rise either.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, look, I'm quite happy to not take a pay rise, but please be aware that the price of fuel has gone up so much. We do not get a fuel allowance, so we will be going less places, I would say, because of the affordability of things now.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the 2% proposed increase. That was set down by the Commission. So I just wanted to understand, so this is just normal practice where, how often do they actually review these? So what are we in our second year and this is the first review, is that right?
Councillor, it's the first rise, just going straight off the top of my head, in your term. During the COVID years, the tribunal or the commission maintained council or wages as they were. Their report, so it's reviewed annually. So they meet and review annually, and they take submissions annually as well. Generally, LJQ conference, I'll have you on to people if you want to do face-to-face, and councils can make written submissions. Over the COVID period of time, there hasn't been a lot happening in this space, and so this is the first report really that's recommended. The reason, just for history, the reason that it was each year going back to a different period of time, councils would set, there's been several different processes over many years, but councils would set a wage for themselves. It was felt that an independent tribunal was a better option. I stand corrected, but I think it was actually when the state government moved their salary across to the tribunals that this type of model came in, that they moved it across. There is no decision point unless council resolves to take less than what the tribunal dictates. And then that's a decision. So council resolves, would under 247, that's why I put it in, would pass a resolution that they take less than the maximum amount and then sets a schedule for the maximum amount. And as the regulation states, all councillors must be the same, so you can't have a different schedule for different councillors, excepting for the deputy mayor and mayor's position, as per the tribunal decision. When it refers to section 248, and why I put that little note in the end, 248 is exceptional circumstances where the tribunal will make an individual councillor decision. So whilst section 247 refers to 248, it's not relevant for your discussion.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, to be honest, I don't have a major concern either way. It's an $11,000 budget saving I see here if we don't take the 2% rise. Yeah, I do think it's just interesting having the conversations in the community. I think having to actually attract quality candidates and candidates to this role, I think, into the future, absolutely you would not do this role if you did not love your community with your whole heart and soul, because my goodness, I think I work more hours now than I ever worked before, and I was on double the wages before I got here. So, by all means, I think it's this is always a touchy subject. I learned that the first council meeting I had, where we had to adopt, a travel allowance, and community always gets very upset about it. But the reality is that when you do a job like this, you spend a hell of a lot of money in your community because you're at every event and you buy a ticket at every event, and you do that because you love your community. It is a love job already. I think the 2% increase, actually based on what we've been given EBA for staff, was fair and reasonable based on the CPI increases and the increases in those. But to be honest, look, you don't do this job for the money, so by all means, I don't mind either way. It's an $11,000 saving. I'd just like to acknowledge, though, that I strongly disagree with what Councillor Duff said here. I think as a council, we've actually worked really hard to try to balance the budget and to support our communities the best way we can. And it's absolutely a challenge, and one that we continue to accept and continue to work through. But yeah, I'm up for it, and I don't mind either way, whatever you like. I don't want to see this blow up in the media that those councillors have their snouts in the trough again. That was absolutely appalling when we started. So I don't mind either way, whatever.
Okay, Councillor Duff.
I'd like to move a motion or a recommendation that we do not take the pay rise, or that our wage remains the same.
We'll need to make reference to section 247(2) of the regulation. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
And this will need to be decided at the June 24th meeting, because part of the regulation is council must make this resolution prior to the end of the financial year. So just so it can't lay on the table when it goes to June.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We have that moved by Councillor Duff. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Erkins has jumped the gun. Thank you, Councillor Erkins, seconded. Okay, speakers? Councillor Duff, anything further?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, further speakers? No, we'll go to the vote then. Sorry? Oh, Councillor Henson, my apologies.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker. Happy to go with this Chamber's decision today, but take into consideration, and certainly the community smashed us on some of the decisions, and the comments of snouts in the trough was horrendous, and we'll get it no matter what we do, whether we eat Scotch finger biscuits in the morning tea room or whether we have Tim Tams. This time last year when fuel was $1.75 and we go to the fuel stations today and it's $2.06 or $2.16, that just to me is a $53 increase a week when I fill my car up. I do this job not for the money, that's for sure. So, yeah, there's totally take on board Councillor Duff's comments and happy to go with the chambers on this, but just in future, I think referencing in the relation to if we ever got rid of divisional positions, councillors, I won't dare single anyone out because we're all in this together, but you might find yourself wishing that there was a travel allowance in the budget, which we, and as you stated, Mr Mayor, we are a very frugal council. We're very frugal. And I know there's people in the community that appreciate that and respect everyone's opinions. So happy to go with this recommendation. I hope it doesn't deter in the future good people representing the South Burnett.
Okay. Closing comments, Councillor Duff?
No, all good, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now call the meeting to a close at 1:41 p.m. Thank you all for your engagement. Have a